Chapter 28-29. Translator, H2-2 Mr. On top of that, layers of dark demonic energy rolled around the scaled creature's body, faintly emitting from its body. This could not be faked and directly revealed its identity. There are actually remnants of the demon clan. Yu Qingyan, Yu Qingyao, Ting Yuanshan, Zhang Haoren, Yu Ran, and the others all became serious. Looking at the figure in the middle, the young disciples of the Yu Qing divine kingdom all had murderous looks on their faces. The existence of the demon clan was an endless source of pain for the ancient beings of the 33 heavens. Even now, when they saw the demon clan experts appear, they would not let them go and vowed to kill them all. Human. Facing the encirclement of the experts, the demon clan spoke in a gloomy and hoarse voice. It was like the sound of stones rubbing against each other, making people feel uncomfortable. On his face, the pair of dark green eyes were suffused with a sinister coldness, mixed with a bloodthirsty light. The demon clan is no longer what it used to be. Since we have met here today, then go to hell and continue to serve your Lord Demon Ancestor. These words came out of Zhang Haoren's mouth. Before he finished speaking, he suddenly raised his sword and violently attacked the demon clan. The dazzling sword light slashed through the space and instantly descended upon the demon clan's man. Human, don't even think about killing me. All of a sudden, the devil clan people roared in anger. Waves of pitch-black devil chi surged out, forming a black light shield above their heads. Chi. The sword light carried the majestic power of the law and instantly shattered the black light shield. Under the huge impact, the demon clan violently spat out a large mouthful of dark green blood. Then, the sword light did not weaken and brazenly slashed at the demon clan's head. However, it was caught by the demon clan's hands and a series of sparks sputtered. Borrowing the terrifying impact of the collision, the demon clan rapidly retreated and instantly flashed into the distance, wanting to escape. This scene stunned Du Xiaofu, Yu Qian, Ting Yuanshan, and the others. Everyone was very clear about Zhang Haoren's strength. However, he was one of the most outstanding people among the younger generation and should be regarded as an outstanding talent. That sword strike just now, even though it wasn't his full strength, it still contained at least 30 to 40% of his strength. Even Yu Qingyan and the others didn't dare to use their hands to block that sword light. However, the devil race did it and even accepted it. Could it be that its physical body was strong to such an extent? This demon's scales are very powerful. They are like gold and iron. Du Xiaofu raised his eyebrows and said softly. As he spoke, he gently waved his hand, and a net of light fell from his hand, directly trapping
Even if they
the
could
fleeing
win,
devil within.
they would have to pay a great
The
price.
power of the two
Fight
primordial
together.
laws intertwined
Yu
and
Qingyao
tightly
shouted,
bound him, under
causing
the
him to be
suppression of the
unable
law
to
of
break
space.
free.
It was very
Capture it.
difficult for them.
Fatty
The
Fan Yushu
cultivations
let
of
out
the
a
20
strange
or so
cry
people
and
were
flew out
very
with a
strong.
large number of figures.
They were at least
once
at the
again
true
surrounding
severing
the
pinnacle
demon
stage
in the center.
and there were However,
even two people
this time
who had
around,
reached the
they
true
did not
severing
hesitate
pinnacle
in the
stage.
slightest.
If they wanted
All
to
of
break
them
through the
instantly
suppression,
attacked with their
they would
full
have to
strength.
go all out to
Under
resist.
the radiance of the
At
laws,
this time,
they
Yu
directly
Qingyao and the others
imprisoned
did
the
not
devil
care
race.
about the blood fiend
Human,
Black Ingot.
quickly
No
let me
matter
go.
how precious this
The
thing
devil
was,
race
it
howled
was
from
not
his
as
mouth,
precious
and
as
his
their
voice
lives.
sounded frightening.
If they
for
did
no
not resist
reason.
in time,
He
they would
struggled
be suppressed
violently
and killed very
waves
quickly.
of dense devil chi
However,
surged out,
just as they were
releasing
preparing to
a
fight,
monstrous
Du
power.
Xiaofu's words
This was
rang
also
in their
a
ears
strong
again.
expert.
Take
His
the
true
blood
cultivation
fiend
was
Black Ingot
not
with
below
all your
Fan
strength.
Yushu and the
I
others.
will fight them.
In addition,
With a
the
flash,
scales on his
the
body were
purple-robed
very
figure
hard,
rushed out from the
comparable
void.
to a divine
Without
weapon.
any hesitation,
In your dreams,
Du Xiaofu unleashed the
Fan
second
Yushu
transformation
snorted
of the
coldly
green
and let a
spirit
dozen
armor.
people to do their
His
best.
gigantic
They
dragon body
displayed the
danced
power
in the
of the
void,
laws,
domineering
firmly
and
binding
domineering.
the devil race.
In less
The
than a
devil
breath's
race
time,
should be
the
killed.
space suppression
A middle
formed by the
stage
20 or so
severing
people from the
stage
Jade
expert
Feather
roared
Holy Land
angrily,
was shattered,
and then a long
making a
saber
sound like
suddenly appeared
porcelain
in his
shattering,
hand,
with
What a
clear
strong
light
boy.
circulating. The
His
20 or
eyes
so people
widened
were
in
shocked
anger,
by Du
and his
Xiaofu's
killing
strength.
intent shot straight
Moreover,
into the night.
the Azure
He was about
Dragon's
to walk
body that he
over
had
and give the devil
transformed
race
into
a
also
slash.
made everyone
Don't kill him
gasp in
first.
amazement.
Du
I don't
Xiaofu
believe
walked
that with
forward
so
and
many
stopped
of
the
us,
person's
we
actions
can't
and
suppress
said,
him. We just entered
a
the
young
fiend
man
god
from the
battlefield
Jade Feather
not
Holy
long ago
Land said
and do
coldly,
not know much
and then
about this
suddenly
place.
moved, and this
rushing
devil
towards
race has been
Du
trapped
Xiaofu
here for countless
10
years.
people go and take
It's
the
better
blood
to get
fiend
some
blacking
information
it,
from
the
him
rest
than
of
to
you
wander
hold this boy
around
back.
aimlessly. Right at this moment,
After saying
the
that,
figure
he
that had been
suddenly
blasted
stretched out
flying
5
earlier
fingers
quickly
and grabbed
returned
the devil
and
race
issued
in
such
front
an
of him
order
above the head.
Yes, Holy
Roar.
Son.
Waves of
Under his
miserable
instructions
screams came
half
from
of
the
the
devil
people from the
race's
Jade
mouth,
Feather Holy
piercing
Land
through
no
gold
longer
and
continued to
splitting
entangle with Du
directly
Xiaofu,
penetrating
but
the soul.
rushed towards Yu Qingyan
Many of the
and
gods
the others.
seizing stage
At the same
cultivators
time,
were instantly
the Holy
pierced
Son of
by
the
this
Jade Feather
piercing
Holy
sound,
Land
and their
also
heads
raised
were
his
about to
sword
burst
and slashed
open.
towards Du
At the
Xiaofu.
same time,
A terrifying
early
cultivation
stage
erupted,
severing
and the
stage
sword
cultivators'
directly
hearts
rose
shook,
into the
and they
sky,
could not stand
cutting the whole
steadily.
world in half.
If not for Yu
A
Qingyan,
terrible
Yu
crack
Qingyao,
appeared in
and
the
the others
void,
timely
pushing to
actions,
both sides,
using their
and this
absolute
space looked like the
cultivation to
sea
set
was
up
being
restrictions
split in
to
half
isolate
by
that
that terrifying
force.
sound.
A
Many
holy
people
son,
would not have been able
Du
to hold on
Xiaofu's
for a breath
dragon
of
mouth
time,
opened and
would have been
closed, letting
directly
out a
killed
dragon
by the devil
roar as he
race's
coldly
screams.
snorted.
So
Roar.
what if you are a
Under
holy
Du
son?
Xiaofu's palm,
In front of
the
this
devil
emperor,
race let
you
out a
still
series
have to
of long
kneel.
screams.
As
sounding
soon as he finished
incomparably
speaking,
miserable.
his 2 dragon
But the
claws
purple-robed
suddenly
youth
began
just
to draw
gently
a strange
closed his
trajectory,
eyes,
and did not
releasing
move
a
at all.
vast aura.
He continued to
The
extract the
trigrams
information
appeared
he
in the
wanted
void,
from the
and
devil
the
race
power of the
cultivator's
law of
mind.
matter flowed and rose,
After a long
carrying
while,
with it
Du
the power
Xiaofu
to
opened
suppress
his
the
eyes,
world,
and a large amount of power
terrifying
burst out from
heavenly
his
lightning,
hand,
and a
earthly
large amount
fire,
of law
mountains
began to
lakes,
flow from his
seas,
palm down the
and
devil
other
race
scenes
cultivator's
pulsed,
body,
as if evolving
carrying
into
with it
an
an endless
incomparably
world.
sharp chi.
At the same
And
time,
in an instant,
the absolute
the devil
hegemony
race
domain
cultivator's
was
body
also
was
released,
torn apart,
blending
and
with
finally,
all the
with
scenes
a
of the
bang,
law of matter,
turned into a
causing
pile
this
of
world
ashes.
to be directly
God
separated
King,
from the
did you get
void.
anything?
Everyone from
Fatty
the Jade
Fan
Feather
Yushu
Holy
eagerly
Land
asked
except
Du
for the
Xiaofu
Holy
as he
Son,
eagerly looked
as
at
well
him.
as the dozen
Of course I got
something
something
from the Yu Qing
Du
Divine
Xiaofu
Kingdom
looked
were
at the
all
fatty
included.
and smiled faintly.
What terrifying
Hearing
strength!
this, where did
Many
this
people
boy come from?
immediately surrounded
I
him,
feel like I can't
and all
move.
of them looked at him.
Although the power
Our
of
previous
the law
guest
of space
was correct.
is not stronger
This
than
fiend
ours.
god
When
battlefield
combined
is
with the law of
incomparably
matter,
huge.
I can't resist.
From the devil race
This
cultivator's
person's
memories,
strength is
I
definitely
learned that
not
this place
below the
is
Holy
really the
Sons.
size of a large
The 20
world
or
in
so
the 30
people
from
from
the
the
Jade
heavens.
Feather Holy
Du
Land were
Xiaofu
shocked.
said,
When had they
rueful.
ever fought
Perhaps
against
this
such a
fiend god
terrifying
battlefield
opponent?
was also
Even
a
if their
large
holy
world when it
sun
was
went
first
all
opened.
out. This
But
was
because of the
probably
devil
the most
race's
he could
attack,
do. It became
most
a land of
importantly,
death.
these
And under
people
the
could
corrosion
clearly
of
feel that the
excessive
boy's
blood chi,
cultivation
he could
was
no
only
longer
a
give
peak
birth
of
to
the
new
true
life.
severing late
Obtaining
stage.
such a result,
However,
the others
the
all
law
felt
of matter
a slight
and the
chill
law
in
of
their
space
hearts,
could
but
combine
they did not
so
say
perfectly.
anything.
Who
After
in the
all,
same
this
generation
result
in
was
the
something they had
33 heavens
expected.
could do this?
Is there any
This
other
was simply
information?
too
At this
inconceivable
time,
and hard
Yu
to
Qingyan
believe.
asked.
Quickly
Everyone
break
wanted
free
to know
and
this
take
question.
the blood demon
This
Ganoderma.
fiend god battlefield
If you don't
was
act now,
extremely
it will be
huge
too late,
and was not
in
smaller
the eyes
than
of
any
these
large
people,
world.
Yu Qingyan,
If they
Yu
relied on these
Qingyao,
people
and the others
who were
were
at
not
the peak of
affected
the
at
late
all.
stage of truth
Instead,
severing,
because
to
of the
explore,
purple-robed youth's
who knew
actions,
how many years
the
it would
aura
take,
they gathered together
and if they
could
could
no
obtain
longer
more
suppress
information
them.
from the devil
The
race
dozen or
cultivators,
so people were
then their
trying their
following
best to
actions
collect
would
the
be
blood
much more
demon
convenient.
Ganoderma.
Of course,
They were worried that if they
Du
delayed
Xiaofu
any
nodded
longer,
and said,
this supreme
many
treasure
people from the
would really
supreme
fall
Chong
into the
Rong
hands
heaven
of
have
others.
entered the fiend god
At
battlefield
this
and
moment,
have already
the
caused
Jade
some
Feather
commotion,
Holy Land's
causing the
Holy Sun
remaining
sword
devil race
slashed down,
cultivators here to be
brazenly
vigilant.
slashing at
The
Du
devil
Xiaofu's
race
8
cultivator
trigrams.
just now was sent
Chilala.
out to scout
A
the
terrifying
situation.
power
There
erupted,
are still
and
many
the 8
remnants of the
trigrams
devil
were
race
instantly
gathered
torn
in the
apart.
fiend god
All the
battlefield.
scenes shook and
They are
almost
very
shattered,
strong, and
Du
their
Xiaofu's
overall numbers
dragon
are
eyes
huge.
narrowed.
We have
The
to be
power of
careful.
this sword was too
In addition,
strong.
there are
As
many
expected of a
terrifying
holy
danger zones
sun,
here.
it was
and
much
for
more
countless
terrifying
years,
than the
no
Tsang Ming
devil
divine
race
cultivator
cultivator
has
has
stepped
stepped
into
into
them.
them.
From
After
the memories
sword
obtained from
slashed
the devil
open the
race
8
cultivator,
trigrams,
he was
it still
very
had
wary
some
of that
momentum
terrifying
left to
danger
descend.
zone.
But
Du
Du
Xiaofu
Xiaofu
did
did
not
not
know
know
how
how
shattering
shattering
dragon
was
roar,
inside, and his
No
dragon
matter
body
what,
twisted
since
into
we
the
have
air.
come to the fiend
He
god
swept out with
battlefield,
his
we
divine
have to
dragon
take a
tail
look.
and
At directly attacked the sword
walked
beam,
lightly in
causing
front
it
of
to
Du Xiaofu
explode
and
with a
said,
bang.
Under the terrifying
when he heard
force,
this,
the 8
he had the same
trigrams
shock.
shook,
But
since they had
fortunately,
come in,
Du
they had to
Xiaofu
take a
managed
look.
to control it
Even
in
if there
time,
was
and it
great
did not
danger
really
there,
collapse.
they had to take a look
However,
first.
a long
Here,
wound had
there
appeared
is
on
a
his
desolate
dragon tail,
palace
and
and
a desolate
fresh blood was
ancient
dripping
ruins.
down.
They are both
We broke
places
free.
that people fear.
At this time, one
In
of the
addition,
10 people from
there
the
is
Jade
also
Feather
a place
Holy
that is
Land
the
who
most
rushed towards Yu
terrifying.
Qingyan
It
shouted.
is called the Gates of Hell.
They joined
No
forces
one
to
dares
attack
to
and
step into
finally
that
broke
place.
free from the
It just so
terrifying
happens
space
that the
shackles
primordial
the moment
ruins
the
are
8
relatively
trigrams shook.
closer, so
Quickly
let's
kill them
explore
and
it
take
first.
the blood demon
Du
Ganoderma.
Xiaofu used the devil
Go to
race
hell,
cultivator's
weaklings.
memories to
These
filter out
people
some useful
all roared
information
loudly
and
said to
charged
everyone,
madly towards Yu Qingyan's group.
Yu Qingyan,
Oh
Yu
no,
Qingyao,
these
and the
people from
others
the Jade
nodded.
Feather Holy Land
Let's
are
go.
too strong.
Du Xiaofu
The God
did
Emperor
not delay
alone
any
has
longer
to take care
and
of
once
us.
again led
I'm
everyone on
afraid
their
he
journey.
won't be able to resist
However,
them.
before they could
Ting
travel
Yuanshan
for 7
said
or 8
solemnly
days,
with great
they came
worry.
across an
They believed
extraordinary
that with
place.
Du Xiaofu's
This
strength,
place was
it would
still
not
very
be too
far
difficult
away
for
for
him
him
to
to
kill
kill
these
these
people
people
from the
but
Jade
the
Feather terrifying aura it emitted was something they had never seen before. Blood demon Ganoderma, while the god emperor had to take care of them while facing more than 10 people. In everyone's line of sight, it was too dangerous. A vast and boundless situation was different from when they fought against the top 100 cultivators of the tree in the forest was tall and towering. These people from the Jade Feather Holy Land were very strong. It would probably take dozens of people to wrap their arms around it. There were 3 true severing perfection stage trees were only left with bare branches. The Holy Sun's strength was in color, and not a single green severing perfection stage cultivator their vitality had long been cut off. The sword in his hand was also normally dilapidated. Otherwise, layers of fishy wind the god emperor's azure dragon body, and the bloody aura in the air became even stronger in the forest. These people can't hurt me. Choking the nose. Du Xiaofu shouted as his dragon body swayed horizontally in the void, and he rushed towards the jade vitality to be cut off. He controlled the diagrams and the power of the laws of matter and space. This was a place that had not been overly involved in the great war back then, but now that the other party was prepared, in this space, he could not stop them. The blood flowed here, divine and the fishy wind blew here, killed them for me, affecting the growth of this forest. These words came out of Du Xiaofu's mouth. The soil in the forest was reddish black, as he faced the mixed with some indistinguishable cauldron streaked across the sky in a perfectly straight shallow swamp, directly heading towards the 10 experts who were completely dried up after so many years. Meng Dongyang's eyes widened as he crushed the void with a little exploration of a peerless artifact burst out like a mountain crushing the sky. The vast aura rolled out, in the beginning, and the people from the Jade Feather Holy Land could not dodge it all. Extinguished. They were smashed by the giant blood of living creatures. Inside Du Xiaofu's world domain, of the entire they could not avoid the battlefield circulated. The murderous aura eventually affected the growth of the muffled sounds rang out, accompanied by the sound of the people blood that had not dried up for thousands of years had turned into a bloody mud that covered the forest. 9 of them were instantly sent flying. Such a scene made one's scalp tingle until they left the range of Du Xiaofu's no domain. Idea how much blood essence had been gathered even there. If these people did not this die, forest should be the first to grow when the world first opened. Terrifying and artifact. It has a very strong vitality. Person's forehead was covered in cold because sweat, of this that under the influence of blood, causing his eyes to become a little blurry. Bloody aura has condensed here. His heart was filled with endless horror, his gaze across and he thought that if he was also hit, his bones would definitely be broken and his vitality would be greatly and had even grown for a certain period of time. He did not dare to continue to rush towards Yu Qingyan. No one knew whether this was a good or bad thing. His strength alone was not enough, blood over the and he could not change the bloody anything. Aura had further transformed for others to come to his rescue. Gradually destroyed the vitality of all the trees and formed this area. However, as soon as this thought appeared in his mind, his pupils waved his hand and shrank down into the forest. He landed directly on the ground, divine thunder cauldrons rushed forward again. And they actually rushed towards him together. Landed on the ground, that terrifying aura rushed over like a great river, carrying with it the power to crush everything. His figure was the extremely purple thunder covered the void. It was not an exaggeration like a to describe him as an ant compared to a tree. And there was an infinite aura of destruction in its domineering aura. I can't take it anymore. No. Seeing the crowd, divine thunder cauldrons gradually enlarging began to tremble. This master let out a long howl and his whole body was about to collapse. But he could not escape at all. Not only him, he watched as the 9 cauldrons smashed into his body, gods around and then his whole body exploded into a cloud. They were on the verge of collapse from the impact of the bloody aura. Chapter 28:31. Don't force yourself. A late-stage true severing cultivator was instantly killed. Dying an unnatural death, looked around, seeing this scene, and then said to the crowd, Blue Feather's eyes, the desolate ancient space opened, as for the others from the Blue Feather Holy Land, he did not dare to let these people out of the forest. Their throats trembled what would happen next, and sweat appeared on their foreheads. If a group of seasoned gods were to be left outside, young man who had transformed into an azure dragon was really too terrifying. Let's continue forward. So many of them besieged him, called out, but they still couldn't side by side with Du Xiaofu. Not only that, one of their own masters was killed in an instant. This forest even if their holy sun went all out, its circumference would be impossible for him to achieve million kilometers. Walala, if they were to walk forward time that the master was killed, who knew how long it would take them to traverse this place, the sky, let alone explore some of the things within. 8 trigrams diagram. The speed of the seizing gods was also very fast, and with a burst of power, it turned into black shadows. And after a few whooshes, they went into Du Xiaofu's azure dragon body. As they went deeper and deeper, more people felt that they could not bear the terrifying aura here. Cut open. This bloody had to pay a heavy price to resolve this attack. It affected people's souls, however, and made their primordial spirits tremble. Blood on the azure dragon's abdomen quickly wriggled and recovered at a speed visible to the naked eye. Fan Yushu, how dare you and the kill my Blue Feather Holy Lands people into the desolate ancient space? You're courting death. However,
Blue Feather Holy
Yuqingxi
Land's
and Duan
Holy
Yizong
Sun
retreated
the two
slightly
peak
after
early
his
stage
attack,
seizing
his
gods
voice cold
remained.
as he stared
In
at the
this way,
giant azure
there were
dragon
only
circling in the
100 or
sky.
so people left by his side.
Du Xiaofu
They were
coldly
all at the
snorted,
middle stage,
accompanied by a
seizing gods and
heaven-shaking
above.
dragon roar.
What a scary
his killing
place.
intent soaring
If I
to
was
the sky.
alone, I
So
wouldn't
what
come
if your
in even
Blue
if you
Feather
beat me
Holy
to
Land?
death. Since you dared to
Yuqingxi
snatch benefits from the shepherd,
shivered, and
don't
felt that
blame
his
me for
body
being
was somewhat
ruthless.
cold.
He had
As
just
spoke,
spoken through
his
to the
dragon
peak
eyes
early
turned
stage
and
seizing
stared
gods,
unblinkingly
and could
at
only
Saint Blue
barely
Feather.
resist the bloody
Boy,
aura
who are you?
invading his
How
body
dare
by
you call yourself
circulating his
emperor?
cultivation with
Only
all
at
his
this time
strength.
did Saint
The
Blue Feather
environment here
really
was
pay
too
attention
scary
to his opponent.
It was
From the
dark
moment
and
he
damp,
appeared until
and the
now,
surrounding tall
Saint Blue
trees
Feather
stood
had
erect
heard the
one
after
after
another,
call himself
making this place
emperor
seem like
more
a
than
maze.
once. There was
Saint
always
Blue
a feeling
was
of
a
not
little
being able to
surprised in
find
his heart.
one's direction
Could
as
this
they went
boy
deeper.
have some great background?
Can you do it?
After
If you
Saint
can't,
Blue Feather
just say
asked
it
that question,
and go into the
a Holy
desolate
Land
ancient
disciple
space for them
suddenly
to hide.
exclaimed with extreme
Du
surprise.
Xiaofu raised his eyes to
Calling
look at
himself
Yuqingxi
an emperor,
and said
he
so.
Could he be
We'll
the
hold on a
Yuqing
little
divine
longer.
emperor?
As
Duan
soon as the
Yizong
sentence
came
came
out,
out and said,
everyone from
he
Blue
did not want
Feather
to hide
Holy
like
Land
this.
came to a
This
realization.
experience could also
Those
be
who
considered
entered
a
the
celestial
celestial
devil
on the
battlefield
path of
are
cultivation.
all of the younger
So
generation.
he could only
Among
bitterly
the
hold on.
72 divine
Du
kingdoms,
Xiaofu nodded,
it seems like
and did not
only
say
the divine
anything more.
emperor of the
He
Yuqing
continued
divine
to move
kingdom has
quickly
entered
and rushed
That's
towards
right.
the center
the
of the
news
forest.
has just spread
Not
in the
long
divinity
after,
and devil
Yuqingxi and
battlefield.
Duan Yizong
They
were
say
indeed
that the
unable to
Yuqing
hold
divine
on
emperor
and
is
were
here.
affected by the terrifying
Who would
aura in the
believe that the
forest.
divine
Their
emperor of a
faces were
country was
deathly
actually
pale,
a true
and wisps of
severing
black
cultivator
twined around their
This
skin.
is simply
Quickly
unimaginable.
enter the desolate
Looks
ancient
like the
space.
rumors are true.
If you force
This
yourself
kid
to
must
hold
be
on,
the new
it will
Yuqing
affect
divine
your
emperor.
cultivation.
The
Du
Yuqing
Xiaofu
divine
turned his
kingdom
head
is
and
really
said to the
unique.
two. They do
Yuqingxi
things that
and Duan
others don't
Yizong
dare to
looked
do.
at each other,
Even
and
a
nodded at the same
truth-severing
time.
cultivator
Then
can become the ruler of a
entered the
country.
desolate ancient space.
The group of people from
Emperor
the Holy
God,
Lands
I'm
couldn't
afraid
help
we
but
can't hold
exclaim.
on for much
They
longer.
were all shocked by
Let's
Du
go in
Xiaofu's
together,
identity,
so you can advance
but very
quickly.
quickly,
At
another
this
voice
time,
rang out,
a middle stage
causing the hearts
seizing
of the
God
crowd to
spoke up.
sink. In order
This
to take care of
Yuqing
them,
divine
Du
emperor is
Xiaofu and
indeed
the others
powerful.
were still prepared to
No
use
wonder
their
he
own
dares to
power to
speak
envelop
so
arrogantly
everyone.
in the
This
celestial
way,
devil
it would
battlefield and
greatly
trample
affect
all the
speed of their
disciples of the
advance.
35
According
sacred
to the
grounds under
situation
his
in
feet.
front of them,
These
they
words
definitely
came from
would
the
not
mouth
be
of a
able to hold
disciple
on
from
for
the
much
Holy
longer.
Lands.
It was
During
better
this
to be
period
more
of time,
straightforward
they had
and
heard
directly
many
hide.
stories about the
Okay,
Yuqing divine
Du
emperor.
Xiaofu readily
Almost
agreed,
every faction
and the other
in the
middle
celestial
stage
devil
seizing
battlefield
gods all
was honing
entered
his
the
name.
desolate ancient space.
It was said that not long
Soon,
ago,
Du
the
Xiaofu's
people from the
surroundings were
Sangmin
only
divine
left with
kingdom were
Yuqing
brutally
Yan,
trampled
Yuqing
by the
Yao,
Yuqing
Meng
divine
Dongyang,
emperor.
Zhang
Their
Haoren,
fifth prince
Tin
was
Yuanshan,
killed, and their
Yu
first
Ran,
prince's
and the other
superior
late-stage
true weapon
seizing
of the
gods.
laws,
In
which
total,
represented
there
the
were
highest
only
authority
14
of the
people
divine
left.
emperor.
We
was
have to
to
be
be careful.
careful. I
Most
keep feeling that
importantly,
this place
before
is
the
not
Yuqing
simple.
divine emperor left,
Yu Qingyao
he
looked
used the
forward
people from
and
the
said
Sangmin
softly,
divine kingdom to
endless
declare
bloody
war
and
on
murderous
all the
aura has
35
condensed,
sacred grounds.
and in the end,
He
it has
said that
corroded
even the
and
saints
turned
and
into a bloody
saintesses of
aura.
the sacred grounds
This
were
place
like either
clay
contains a
chickens
great
and
ominous
dogs.
object,
They
or it will
couldn't
give
even
birth
withstand
to
a
a precious
single
treasure.
blow from the Sangmin
Du
divine
Xiaofu's
kingdom,
eyes
let
flashed,
alone the
and he
first
said
prince
as if
of
he
the
was
Sangmin
talking to
divine
himself.
kingdom.
I'm
As for
thinking
the
that the
people from the other
possibility of a
71
great
divine
ominous
kingdoms,
object
they were
appearing
all
is a bit
ignored.
higher.
They weren't even
Yu
mentioned
Qingyan
at all.
smacked his lips
This insolence
and said as he
stunned
looked at everyone
everyone
when they heard the news.
This forest was
They were
very
all shocked
terrifying.
by the Yuqing
But
divine
any place
emperor's
like this,
arrogance.
after countless
However,
years of change and
many
evolution,
people understood
would
after
definitely
thinking
produce
about it.
something that was
It was
difficult
very
to
likely
see.
that the people
It was
from the
probably
Sangmin
something
divine
that could
kingdom
not
were
be seen
unwilling
in the
to admit
three
defeat.
heavens. They were
And the
stirring
most
up
likely
trouble
thing
and
was
making
that an
enemies for the
extremely
Yuqing
terrifying
divine
thing would
emperor.
appear.
However,
If that was the case,
their actions
they would
were
probably
undoubtedly
face
successful.
unimaginable
The
danger.
name of the Yuqing
It had
divine
to be
emperor
known that
spread
this was a
across all the
battlefield
major
of the demon
factions.
race at the
Whether
beginning
it was
of the
the
world.
people from the
Billions
35
of
sacred
creatures died
grounds
here,
or the other
and the
70
strength
divine
of the
kingdoms,
murderous aura
everyone
was
was
difficult
deeply
to find
interested
in the
in
world.
him.
It was
Some
naturally
experts
not even said that if they met him,
ominous
they would
object or
definitely
demonic
fight him.
object to be
At the
born
same
here.
time,
Of
there were
course,
also
there was
arrogant
also
people who
another
said that they would
possibility.
definitely trample
Extreme
Dushafu.
Yin gave birth to Yang,
Therefore,
and
the
things
only
would
person
move in
who
the
could call
opposite
himself
direction.
a divine
If this
emperor in the
forest
celestial
produced
devil
some precious
battlefield
treasure,
was the new
there was
Yuqing
also a
divine
small
emperor.
chance.
The identity
However,
of the
everyone
purple-robed
only
youth
thought
in the
about this
form of the
possibility
Azure Dragon
and did
was
not dare
obvious.
to truly hope
I
for
was
it.
wondering who it
After
was.
all, this
So you're
chance
the
was very
Yuqing
small.
divine emperor.
Du Xiaofu
At this
and
moment,
the dozen
the
or
holy
so people
sun
continued to
of the Jade Feather
advance.
Holy Land
In the
became
monotonous
serious
and dry environment,
whether or
another
not the
arrogant
arrogant
words
words
of trampling
in the blink
all
of
the
an
holy
eye.
sons and
Just
holy
as they had
daughters came
expected,
from the mouth
the
of the
aura
youth
here
in
was
front of
becoming
him,
more and
it was
more
undeniable
terrifying.
that he was
If those
very
middle
strong.
stage seasoned gods had
At the
not
very
entered
least,
the desolate
the
ancient
holy
space,
son of the
they
Jade
would
Feather
definitely
Holy
not
Land
be able
did
to
not
hold
have
on
a high
anymore.
chance of winning against him.
Such an
Chapter
outcome made the holy
28:30.
son of the
At
Jade
this point,
Feather Holy
even
Land
Meng
disheartened.
Dongyang,
The battle just now allowed him to weigh the gap between the others felt immense pressure.
That's right, it's me.
The evil blood
Du
chi
Xiaofu
invaded
did
their
not deny
bodies
it and
and
said with
everyone's
certainty.
bodies were covered
He
with
was
a
not
thin
surprised
layer
that
of
the
black
holy
chi.
son of the Jade
Everyone
Feather
relied on
Holy
their
Land
strong power of
recognized him.
laws to keep the
It was
black chi
obvious that the
outside.
news of his battle
In
with the
comparison,
Songming
Du
divine
Xiaofu
kingdom
was
had
much better.
spread.
He
You're
had the
indeed an
immortal
arrogant
Shen
person.
body, so the
However,
terrifying
if you
aura
really
couldn't
dare to
really
treat the
invade the
successors
body.
of the various
Even if
sacred
some
grounds
aura
as if
entered
they're
his
nothing,
body,
you
it
will
was
definitely
quickly
die a
refined.
horrible death.
The holy
this
son
day,
of the
Du
Jade Feather
Xiaofu's
Holy
eyes
Land
suddenly
said with a
flashed
gloomy
as
look.
something appeared in
These
his
words
line of
caused
sight,
Du Xiaofu
attracting
to be
his
suddenly
attention.
stunned, and he didn't know where to start. However, after thinking about it for a while,
and the others'
he felt
eyes
relieved.
trembled as they were
It must have been
surprised by
Crown
what they
Prince
saw.
Song Ming
Without
and the others
thinking,
who had made
they
up a
flashed
series
from
of
where they were
stories
and
to push him into the heart of the storm.
After taking
From
a closer look,
they would be able
everyone
to borrow
instantly
the hands of
in
the
a
major
breath of
forces
cold air.
to eliminate him.
Their
Blood
intentions
demon
are
Black
really
Ganoderma.
sinister.
So this
Du
legendary
Xiaofu's
thing
eyes were
really
cold.
does exist.
The next time he
What
met
a
the people of the
terrifying place
Songming
to
divine
grow
kingdom,
such a
he
terrifying
would
thing.
definitely kill them
More
and
than a
make them
dozen
tremble
people
and
looked
fear.
at each other in
They
amazement.
would never dare to
In
spread
front of
rumors
them,
again.
there was a huge
However,
plant
at the
that was
same
as tall
time,
as a person.
Du Xiaofu
It
opened
looked
his
like a
mouth
mushroom,
slightly and
but it was
snorted
actually
at the
a
holy
huge
son of the
Ganoderma.
Jade Feather Holy
The
Land.
Ganoderma's crown was
I
the
don't know how
size of
strong
two
the
people and
successors of the 35
and
sacred
its roots
grounds
were
are,
as thick
but
as
if
a
you
wash
use your
basin.
strength as a
Its
benchmark
entire
to measure
surface
them,
was black
I'm
and
afraid they're
faintly
really
emitted
not
a
that
red
good.
light.
The
releasing
corners
a
of his
fragrance.
mouth curled up slightly
Blood
with
demon
disdain.
Black Ganoderma.
If it was a
This is an
one-on-one
amazing
battle,
thing.
dealing with the
Meng
holy
Dongyang
son of the
clicked his
Jade
tongue
Feather
in
Holy
admiration.
Land would only take
His
a little
eyes
more
were wide
effort
open,
than dealing with
as
the
if he had
first
been
prince
frightened.
of the Songming divine
No
kingdom.
wonder such a
What
treasure
an
has
arrogant
never been
person.
seen in the
This
33
holy son
heavens.
wants to see how
It
you
turns
can
out
fight
that
against
only the
so many
boundless
of us
blood
with
chi
your
of
own
the
strength
divine
today.
demon battle boundary
The
can
holy
nourish
son of the
such a
Jade
rare
Feather
treasure.
Holy Land said
Zhang
coldly
Hao
as he
also
glanced in the
sighed,
direction
his
of Yu
eyes burning
Qingyan
with
and the
passion.
others.
At
This
this
blood
time,
demon
more
Black
than a dozen
Ganoderma
people
is
from the
definitely
Yuqing
a
divine
supreme
kingdom
treasure.
had begun to cut
It's
off
the
the
biggest
blood
harvest
spirit
we've gotten
Ganoderma
since
and we're about
entering
to
the
take it away.
divine demon battle
If they did not
boundary.
act now,
Ting
such a treasure
couldn't
would
fall
fall
into
into
the
the
hands
hands
of the
and rub
Yuqing
his
divine
hands.
kingdom.
Using
With
this
Du
thing,
Xiaofu's
we
strength,
can
it
effectively
would be
temper
very
our
difficult for them
primordial
to
spirit
obtain
and
it if you wanted
strengthen
to
our soul
retreat with
power.
everyone.
In the future,
Everyone,
on the
attack
path
together
of
and kill
cultivation,
this boy
the
with
power
all
of
your
comprehension
strength.
will
After
definitely
he dies
increase as for the others.
explosively, they won't
Yu
be able
Qingyan
to
said
escape.
after a moment of silence.
With such a loud
Any
shout,
cultivator
everyone
who
from
reached
the
a
Jade
profound
Feather
level
Holy
of
Land
cultivation
attacked at the
relied
same
on
time,
comprehending
attacking
everything
Du
in the world
Xiaofu
to
together.
improve themselves.
Hong Long
If
Long,
one wanted to grasp the
terrifying
boundless
power of
laws,
space
it was not something that could be done just by relying on the growth of one's
collision
physical
with
strength.
Du Xiaofu's
One also
domineering
needed
domain.
a strong comprehension
These
ability.
two types of energy
This
were
blood
both
evil
related
black
to the
evil
laws of
also
space,
contained an
and they
endless
came
amount
from
of
the same
evil
source.
aura after being
As soon as
invaded
they
by
came
the
into
evil
contact
aura
with
for
each other,
countless years.
the world was instantly
However,
overturned
at the same
while the
time,
heavens
it
and the
also
earth were
possessed
turned
an
upside
extremely
down.
powerful nourishing
Large
effect
expanses
because
of
it was
space
able to
in the
survive
surroundings
within the evil
exploded into
aura
pieces,
of the blood
and it was
evil
an
chi.
extremely chaotic
These two
scene.
powers neutralized each other,
Du
making the
Xiaofu's
blood
azure
fiend
dragon
Black
body
Zoisha
kept
a rare
rolling and
treasure.
twisting,
It didn't
suppressing
exist
space.
like the underworld
Under the bright
soulgrass,
light of the 8
where one had
trigrams
to
in the
constantly
void,
pay attention
his
to
body
whether
seemed to
or
be
not
cast
they
from
would be
gold
affected
and
by
iron,
refining it.
releasing a
Once
terrifying
cultivator
sense of
consumed
power.
it, as
Under
long
the
as their
full attack
cultivation
of
was
more than a
not too
dozen
weak,
people,
they would
the
be
8
able to
trigrams
absorb
in the
it
void
easily.
above constantly
It was
rotated
truly
and
a rare
changed,
treasure,
and the various
I
scenes
can't let
below
go of
shattered
such a
and
good thing.
reappeared, and
Du
then
Xiaofu
shattered
looked
again.
at the blood fiend
Hong
Black
Long
Zoisha
Long.
with
The
sparkling
9
eyes.
cauldrons suppressed
This
the
stalk
void
was
and
very
rolled,
large and was
suppressing the
enough to
heavens and
divide
earth.
among the dozen of
While
them.
blocking one
After
attack
refining
after
it,
another,
the
they
young
also
disciples of the
smashed into
Yuqing
many
divine
people,
kingdom would
causing
be
them to
greatly
vomit blood
improved
and
in the
fly
divine
back.
devil battle realm.
However,
Du
as he
Xiaofu's
spoke,
azure
Du
dragon body
Xiaofu
stretched
also
out
had
a hand and
wounds,
slowly grabbed
and
the
purple
blood
blood
Black
flowed out
Zoisha
and sprinkled
this
into
kind
the
of
void.
treasure shouldn't be easily
The
obtained.
holy son of the
He
Jade
needed to
Feather
slowly
Holy
Lan's eyes were red as he held his sword and attacked fiercely. Hand reached out, terrifying sword in front of him through the barrier of space and in the blink of an eye, dragon's body again and again, suddenly swelled causing terrible injuries. Terrifying sword light since he had already fought aiming directly at Du Xiaofu's chest, and one of his fellow disciples had already died at the hands of Du Xiaofu. Careful, there was no reason for him to give up now. He knew very well that it was impossible for him to defeat and the others all cried out in alarm. But he also did not believe that the Yuqing divine emperor alone could defeat so many people overwhelmed with shock. The murderous aura within the sword radiance was vast in the air. His surrounding void was fluttering in the wind by a terrifying force. His entire body was as bright as a rainbow, and the power even if of everyone wanted to help across the area, they were simply in terms of unable to do so in principles. He was even more powerful than the divine kingdom could finish their words. He passed through the radiance, had appearing and disappearing like a ghost. and it was hard to track him down.
Unparalleled
But
power
suddenly,
and directly
he attacked
sliced
violently with his body in half. However, then the Yuqing Divine Emperor's strength was indeed terrifying. What terrifying
The combination
power.
of the
Who
laws
was it
of
that
matter
launched
and
a sneak
space
attack?
as one was able to break
Yuqing
through
Yan,
most of the
Yuqing
holy
Yao,
sun
and the others
of the
were all
Jade
sent
Feather
flying
Holy
by
Land's
the
attack.
terrifying power
Moreover,
and smashed into
the
giant
9
trees.
terrifying cauldrons
After they landed, they
swept
all
through
let
the air,
out a muffled
injuring
groan.
the holy sun
Their
of the
faces
Jade
darkened
Feather
as they
Holy
looked
Land.
around,
As
trying
for
to
the
find the
others,
attacker.
needless to say,
Where is the
they were
Emperor
all
God?
severely injured.
Teng Yuanshan looked
What a
around and
perverted
also tried to
defensive
find
power.
Du Xiaofu's
How
trace.
could there be someone who
sword
could
light just
cultivate
now
the
was
Azure
very
Dragon
powerful.
body?
It
The
was
more
so
intense the
powerful
battle,
that if they
the
faced
more
it head-on,
shocked the holy
it would be
sun of
very
the Jade
dangerous
Feather
and their
Holy Land
lives
was.
would be in danger.
He looked at
However,
the Azure Dragon
they knew that
flying
with
up and
Du
down in the
Xiaofu's
sky,
strength, and
he
his
shouldn't
eyes
have been
were
killed
filled
with
in one
endless
blow.
shock.
The purple-robed figure
The other
that was
party's
destroyed
defense
should have
was
been
too
an
abnormal.
afterimage.
Even though he
So
had
there is
suffered
such a
quite
tidbit
bit
of
of damage
expert
under the
among the
attacks of so
disciples
many
of the
people, he was still
unparalleled
recovering
Rong
at a
heaven.
rapid pace.
Everyone's
As the
eyes
green
trembled
dragon's body
fiercely.
twisted and turned,
Apart from the
there was
demon
no
race,
sign of
only
its
the
aura
younger
weakening.
generation of
Instead,
the
it
unparalleled
became
Chang Rong
even more
heaven had
ferocious
entered the
as it
Fiend
fought.
God battle realm.
The disciples
There
of the
shouldn't
Holy
be
Land
anyone
are
else here.
only SOSO.
Judging from
Du
the aura
Xiaofu
of the
roared,
sword light
letting
just
out a
now,
terrifying
the
dragon
vast
roar
and
that
fierce
pierced
intent
through
was
gold
absolutely
and cracked
terrifying.
stone.
The
It was
void
definitely
torn
not
apart,
something that a
and
demon
heaven
race
and earth
person
were
could
turned
possess.
upside down.
Clearly,
He danced
the person who
wildly
launched
in
the
the air,
sneak attack
moving
was a
with the 8
disciple of some
trigrams in the
power.
void.
Just as
Under
these
his
thoughts
control,
flashed through
the
everyone's
9
minds,
cauldrons
and they were
attacked
searching for traces
ferociously.
of Du Xiaofu
It had to
and
be
the person
said that
who had
these people
attacked.
from the Holy
An
Land
angry
were
roar
really
came
strong.
from the void and
They were
suddenly
almost as
exploded.
strong as the top
Sneaky
100
scoundrel,
experts of
come
the
out and
Yuqing
pay your
Divine
respects
Kingdom
to this
combined.
emperor. However,
This was
this
Du
time was
Xiaofu's
different
voice.
from the battle
It
that
was
day.
fierce and
Du
domineering,
Xiaofu attacked
and there
without
was
any
endless
scruples,
killing intent.
beating the disciples
As soon
of the
as he
Holy
finished
Land
speaking,
into a sorry
the void
state.
in front of him
Altogether,
was smashed
for
through
people
with a
had
bang.
died under the divine
A figure
thunder
shot out from
cauldrons,
it and
and
flew
one was
hundreds of
directly
thousands of
smashed
miles
into
before
a bloody
stopping.
pulp by his dragon
Along the
tail.
way, the
He
figure
couldn't be more
smashed
dead.
countless trees.
Generally speaking,
Under everyone's
so many
gazes,
truth-severing
Du
realm
Xiaofu
cultivators
also flew
still
out
could
of the
not
void in the
compare to
opposite
immortal
direction.
realm cultivators.
After he appeared,
At the very
he quickly
least,
sent a
when
voice
Du
transmission
Xiaofu
to
faced
Yuqing
these
Yan,
people,
and the
he could
others,
still handle
saying
them with
anxiously,
ease. Quickly
although
attacked
he was
his injured,
injured,
and
he did
seized
not
the
need to
blood-fiend
retreat
Black
at all.
Zoisha. Earlier in the
such a sentence,
Jinhua
the
heaven,
dozen or
Du
so
Xiaofu
people didn't
fought
need
the
to
first
think
sky
and
of
surrounded
immortal
the
realm
blood-fiend
expert
Black
of the
Zoisha
heaven-devouring
again.
demon wolf
The dozen
clan,
or
but
so
he paid a
late-stage
great price to
successfully
several cultivators
kill him.
exerted their
He
strength
suffered
at
an
the same time.
unimaginable injury,
Layer after
almost
layer of
shaking
law
his
light
foundation.
poured down and surged
However,
towards the
today,
blood-fiend
he
Black
didn't need to
Zoisha.
worry about this
Needless
at all.
to say, the person
Success.
who attacked just now
Just
was
when Du
very
Xiaofu
strong,
and the people
even
of the
Du
Jade Feather
Xiaofu was
Holy
somewhat
Land were
afraid.
fighting with all their
Moreover,
strength.
the other
Yuqing
party
Yan
was
surprised
clearly
voice
aiming for
sounded.
the blood-fiend
Under the
Black
situation where there was
no
no
one wanted
outside
this treasure to be
interference,
snatched
a dozen
away.
people worked together and
a bunch of
finally
chickens and
succeeded
dogs
in plucking
How
the black
dare you
blood
snatch
spirit
the treasure
Zoisha.
in front of my
Yuqing
Jade
Yan
Feather
put it
Holy
into
Land.
his Jiankun bag.
Accompanied by
Such
such
a result
words,
made them
after
all
a few
endlessly
swooshes,
happy.
no less than
The
20
black blood
figures
spirit
flashed out of the
Zoisha was
void and
definitely a
directly
treasure.
rushed towards
Such
Yuqing
a
Yan
huge
and the
plant
others.
was enough for
On
many
these
people
20
to
or
take
so
a step
people,
forward
the
with it.
power of law
As long as
flowed
their
endlessly,
cultivation base improved,
fluctuating with
the
a
Yuqing
fierce
Divine
aura.
Kingdom would
In
be
an
able to
instant,
obtain
the
more
space
benefits
where
in
Yuqing Yan
divinity
and the others
and
were
devil
located was
battlefield.
bound.
Bastard.
The power of the law of
Seeing
space
this scene,
is so
the
strong.
Jade Feather Holy
Everyone
Sun
from the
cursed in a low
Yuqing Divine
voice.
Kingdom was
He had
shocked.
underestimated
The
his
average
and Du
cultivation
Xiaofu's
level
strength.
of this newcomer
He
was
thought
much
that they could
higher
kill him
than
quickly,
theirs.
but he didn't
When these
expect
people
that they would
jointly
drag it
used
out
the
for
power
so
of the law
long
of
that the
space,
black blood
it
spirit
actually made their
Zoisha
side
was
feel as
successfully
if they had
plucked.
fallen into
If
a
that was the
swamp,
case,
unable
there was
to
no
move.
point in them
So
continuing
it's
to
people
fight.
from the Jade
With the
Feather Holy
Yuqing
Land.
Divine Emperor's strength,
Yuqing
it would be
Yan's eyes
difficult for
became
them to stop him
incomparably
if he
deep,
wanted to leave,
and he felt an
not to mention whether
unprecedented
or not he
pressure
could
in his
snatch
heart.
the treasure back.
The Jade Feather Holy Land was one of the
Jade Feather
35
Holy
Holy
Land
Land
is just
Although this Holy
I
Land
won't
was
play with
not
you anymore
extremely
today.
strong, it
I'll
could be
come
ranked
back and
13th
torture you
or
Holy
14th
Son another day.
among the
35
Du
holy
Xiaofu
lands.
roared happily.
Their overall
The
strength
Azure
was
Dragon's
much
huge
stronger
tail
than
swept
Yuqing
across
divine
and
kingdom.
wrapped up Yuqing
Even
Yan,
if the
Yuqing
thousands
Yao,
of immortal
Ting Yuan Shan,
powerhouses from
and
the
the others,
3,000
sending
boundless
them
worlds
into the
attacked
ancient
at the same
desolate
time,
space,
it would definitely
then he
not be as
stretched out his
easy
body
as
and let
crushing
out
the
a
Jews'
loud
spirit
dragon
holy
roar.
land. He was ready to use the first form of the rising sun to leave this place. However, just as he activated the law of space, the entire space was suddenly filled with a terrifying blood spirit qi. If the space was like a huge city wall, Du Xiaofu could freely pass through it with the help of the law of space, then now, the terrifying blood spirit qi that seeped in was like a sturdy rivet, crisscrossing every inch of the space, causing the city wall to be so sturdy that it couldn't be shaken in the slightest. Even if he used the law of space, he was still forced to reveal himself on the spot. What's going on? Why can't I pass through space? I don't know where this blood spirit chi is coming from. It's too scary. It's affecting the law of space. Retreat, I'm afraid it's dangerous. The people of Blue Feather Holy Land also quickly discovered this and cried out in panic. Everyone quickly gathered together and began to retreat in a certain direction. I'm afraid something extremely ominous has appeared. Du Xiaofu returned to his human form and narrowed his eyes, his heart beating extremely fast. He had never encountered a scene like this before. The terrifying blood spirit chi was too strong, causing the surrounding space to be greatly affected. The world order was in chaos and the space principles had lost their effectiveness. At this moment, Blue Feather Holy Sun suddenly roared and quickly led everyone from the Holy Land away. His eyes stared at a certain place and a look of panic appeared in his eyes. Following his gaze, all the trees in that direction had been turned to dust in an instant. Silently, a scarlet mist swept out from that place and quickly moved in the direction of everyone. A loud roar broke through the clouds and thunder rumbled between heaven and earth, shattering the sky and cracking the earth. Du Xiaofu and the dozens of people from Blue Feather Holy Land all felt their hearts shake and their bodies become unsteady. That ominous creature was too terrifying. Just a simple roar from it had such a terrifying penetrating power, causing one's Yuan spirit to feel like it was about to explode. The blood spirit chi also took advantage of this opportunity to invade their bodies. Accompanied by such a loud roar, an incomparably majestic figure stepped out of the scarlet fog. Huge feet stepped across the forest, and with a stomp, tens of thousands of ancient trees were crushed. Deep craters also appeared on the ground. What a terrifying creature! A great ominous creature was born in this ancient forest. Du Xiaofu's heart trembled fiercely as he was shocked by the blood spirit chi. Everyone had speculated earlier that this ancient forest, which was nourished by the blood spirit chi, would either produce a rare treasure or a great ominous creature, with the latter being more likely. At this time, they had indeed found a treasure like the black blood spirit grass, but a great ominous creature had directly come knocking on their door. Du Xiaofu didn't need to think about it and directly ran away. Although he couldn't tear space, he could still fly directly. He couldn't just stay here and wait for the ominous creature to find him. The ominous creature was surrounded by a monstrous scarlet mist, concealing its true appearance. Du Xiaofu didn't dare to look back carefully. With a single step, it crossed a great distance and was actually approaching Du Xiaofu and the people from Blue Feather Holy Land step by step. This scene really made everyone panic. Since they couldn't fly, they couldn't use their fastest speed, otherwise, it would be much easier to get rid of the ominous creature behind them. However, at this time, the boundless blood spirit chi rushed over, causing everyone to smell the scent of death. Another strange cry rang out, and everyone felt a gust of cold wind behind them, sweeping over them like a stormy sea. What the fuck? Du Xiaofu cursed and couldn't help but be speechless. He was terrified by the strength of this ominous creature. Chapter 28:32. The fiendish energy that filled the air was extremely terrifying. It was like a surging tide, and Du Xiaofu and the others were like fish in the water. They couldn't control themselves at all and were directly sent flying, rushing towards the top of the waves. This wasn't the worst of it. The most terrifying thing was that they clearly sensed something that was like an enormous mountain pressing down from behind them, and it simply intended to crush all of them into a pile of mush. The power of Du Xiaofu's primordial spirit probed behind him, and he felt a chill run down his spine. The huge thing that was pressing down on Du Xiaofu was in the shape of a palm. However, this palm was really too big. It directly covered half the sky. Before it really attacked, Du Xiaofu already felt that his body was being oppressed to the point that it stiffened, and his movements became much slower. His immortal Shen body was cracking, and blood splashed out. My life is over. Among the people from Blue Feather Holy Land, one of them screamed as his body exploded with a bang. Come with me. Blue Feather Holy Sun roared and quickly took out a palm-sized short sword from his cosmos bag. After pouring his strength into it, the small sword, no more than a foot long, instantly grew in size and directly rose into the sky, brazenly slashing at the void in front of him. Chi. Along with the sound of metal clashing, there was no huge crack in the void as expected. The surrounding space seemed to have solidified into the most solid object, and it was very difficult to cut through. However, the previous short sword was also an extraordinary object, and it still tore a small crack in space in front of Blue Feather Holy Sun and the others. Under the leadership of the Holy Sun, the remaining dozen people of Blue Feather Holy Land all rushed in and quickly fled. Seeing such a scene, Du Xiaofu was speechless and a little dumbfounded. The other party was indeed worthy of being the successor of a holy land, and the treasures on him were not something he could compare to. At this moment he had directly fled. Now that he was the only one left, what should he do? Next time when I come out on an adventure, I must plunder Master's place. Du Xiaofu clenched his teeth and said. He regretted that he did not ask Yu Qian for some treasures before coming to the divine demon battlefield. This was definitely a big mistake. With the strength of the force behind Yuqing Divine Kingdom, the things they could take out would not be worse than Blue Feather Holy Land. It seems that I can only continue to hide. Feeling the palm of the monster behind him getting closer and closer, Du Xiaofu could not help coughing up a mouthful of blood. He smiled bitterly and no longer delayed. He entered the ancient desolate space and disappeared from the forest. Ao. After Du Xiaofu, the monsters, the great monster roared repeatedly, the trees, the monster, and the trees into dust. It was filled the boundless evil chi, evils filled the entire space. After patrolling a few times and confirming that all the humans had escaped, the ferocious creature let out an angry roar again. With a sweep of its paw, tens of thousands of miles of forest was instantly flattened. It was extremely neat. After the ferocious creature vented its unwillingness, it did not leave. Instead, it burrowed into the hole and disappeared. Soon, the entire area became strangely quiet, and not a single sound could be heard. Brother Du, God King, Your Majesty! Inside the ancient desolate space, Yu Qingyan, Yu Qingyao, Fan Yushu, and He Zhibai saw Du Xiaofu and quickly gathered around him. Du Xiaofu forced a smile and briefly told them what had happened outside. They couldn't help but be frightened. That great monster had appeared so suddenly that no one had time to react. If it weren't for the ancient desolate space, Du Xiaofu would have been in danger. Judging by the realm of the 33 heavens, I'm afraid that the monster's competence isn't less than third sky of immortal realm. After calming down, Du Xiaofu secretly estimated and felt a heavy feeling in his heart. He didn't plan to go out for the time being. He would stay in seclusion for a while to observe the situation and wait for an opportunity to take action. After entering the divine demon battlefield, we've collected many good things. Everyone, distribute them. Let's refine them in the ancient desolate space. Looking at the 20,000 people around him, Du Xiaofu took out a large amount of precious herbs from his Qiankuan bag and piled them on the ground. Most of the herbs were crimson nether flowers. The dark soul grass he had found was also in the pile. Then there were the things he had taken from the fifth prince of Tsangming Divine Nation and the cultivator of the Law of Soul. They were all here, including many crimson nether flowers and the precious black soul wood. I have a lot here too. Teng Yuanshan also took out all the precious herbs and placed them with Du Xiaofu. I have dozens of crimson nether flowers too. I have some too. Many experts stepped forward and handed over what they had obtained in the celestial demon battle realm. Very quickly, a small mountain was piled up in front of Du Xiaofu. Many precious herbs were piled up together. Although these precious herbs were very monotonous, with the crimson nether flower as the main ingredient, such a huge amount was enough to frighten anyone. The most precious thing is still this black blood spirit Zoisha. Yu Qingyan praised and placed a black blood spirit Zoisha that was taller than a person on the ground. The process of obtaining this treasure was not easy. They had to pluck it under the fierce attack of the Jade Feather Holy Lands. If it weren't for the Divine Emperor holding back more than 20 people, this black blood spirit Zoisha would never have fallen into our hands. Zhang Haoran sighed. He really admired Du Xiaofu and gradually felt some reverence for him. With his majesty leading everyone, our harvest in the divine demon battlefield should be just the beginning. Ha! Fan Yushu's fat face scrunched up and he suddenly laughed. Bootlika. Yu Chengliang, He Jibai, Yu Qingyu, and the others all rolled their eyes and scolded with a smile. Du Xiaofu smiled faintly and did not comment on this. He only opened his mouth and said, "This black blood spirit Zoisha is the most precious. To be able to obtain it is the merit of 14 people. Then we will divide it equally." As he spoke, his eyes swept over Yu Qiyan, Yu Qingyao, Meng Dongyang, Zhang Haoren, Ting Yuanshan, Yu Yuran, and the others. "That's not right." Everyone was a little dumbfounded, only to hear Yu Qingyan say, "We were able to obtain the black blood spirit Zoisha because of Marshal Uncle Du's contribution. If we divide it among 14 people, I'm afraid it's not fair." Hearing these words, the others all nodded in agreement. His statement was not exaggerated at all. If Du Xiaofu had been replaced by anyone else, it would have been impossible for him to fight for so long under the siege of more than 20 people from the Jade Feather Holy Lands and even kill several of them. If it weren't for him, the black blood spirit Zoisha would definitely be in the pocket of the Holy Land. "Everyone, there's no need to be polite with me. Since I am the divine emperor of Yuqing Divine Kingdom, it is my duty to lead everyone to grow together." Du Xiaofu waved his hand and said, "This black blood spirit Zoisha is large enough and should be able to help me improve a lot. If not for this, I would not have been polite with you. When I need something, I'm afraid I will directly ask you for treasures to improve myself." This, Du Xiaofu's words made everyone feel a little helpless. Everyone naturally understood what he meant. His Majesty the Divine Emperor regarded them as one of his own and would not treat them as outsiders. This meant that as long as he had something, everyone would have it, and if he happened to need something, he would ask for it from others. At this moment, many people had a strange feeling in their hearts. It seemed that the divine emperor of their generation was very different from the members of the royal family of other countries. If you think it's inappropriate, how about this? Seeing that everyone was still a little hesitant, Du Xiaofu spread his hands and said, "Everyone will distribute it according to their needs, but it must be done in order of strength. If the 14 of us still can't finish using this black blood spirit Zoisha, then let those in the middle stage of true severing stage refine it. This method is feasible." Yu Qingyan nodded, expressing his agreement. "Let's do as the divine emperor says. If everyone continues to push back and forth, it would be disrespectful to refuse." Zhang Haoren also kept nodding, agreeing with Du Xiaofu's words. "Our Majesty," many strong people were moved. Of course, they knew the purpose of Du Xiaofu's decision. He wanted everyone to improve together. The treasures were obtained by everyone, so everyone should have a share. Distributing according to the strength of cultivation would make everyone believe in it, and no one would say anything. First, the black blood spirit Zoisha. After distribution, it will be the ebony soul wood and underworld soul grass. These two things are also very rare, but you need to pay attention when refining them. Du Xiaofu looked at the many treasures piled up on the ground and continued, "These treasures are definitely not enough for us to distribute among more than 20,000 people. In the end, even more people will have to suffer. However, if we continue to obtain benefits in the Fiend God battlefield, we will continue to distribute according to need, and not let anyone come here in vain." He said very seriously, his gaze moving from the ground to everyone. "With your Majesty's words, it is enough. We have not made any contributions, but we can get a few crimson nether flowers. We are already ashamed." Some cultivators in the early stage of true severing stage and seizing God stage solemnly clasped their fists and said to Du Xiaofu. They knew that they wouldn't get a share of the black blood spirit Zoisha, ebony soul wood, and underworld soul grass. However, they had obtained quite a bit of underworld soul grass. On average, they would be able to obtain 2 to 3 stalks. More importantly, most of them didn't find any treasures in the Fiend God battlefield. They were very clear about this point. Besides that, most people were unable to come into contact with the best few treasures. Not to mention refining and obtaining benefits from them, the slightest carelessness would cause one to directly die from the backlash of the treasured medicine. If that happened, It would be a great loss. It's decided then. The treasures will be placed here. If you need them, come and get them yourself. Du Xiaofu waved his hand, indicating for everyone to start cultivating. He took a piece of the black blood spirit Zoisha. It was about 1/20th of the total, and he felt that it was enough for his needs. After that, he went to a corner of the desolate ancient space and sat down cross-legged beside the principal of Tianwu Academy. Previously, in the Qiansu Jinghua sky, with the help of Chu Daoju, Ling Feng, Long San, and many other immortal realm experts, Du Xiaofu resonated with their auras. In the end, a resonance was formed between him and the principal of Tianwu Academy. As a result, his comprehension of the law of time and the law of space was greatly improved. He felt that there was a chance for this resonance to be triggered again. This kind of opportunity was hard to find in the world. Let's cultivate as well and strive to improve. Seeing that Du Xiaofu had entered a state of cultivation, Yu Qingyan didn't hesitate. He took a piece of the black blood spirit Zoisha and found a place to sit down. Soon, over a dozen cultivators in the late stage of true severing stage took a piece of the black blood spirit Zoisha and sat down cross-legged. I don't have the face to take the greatest benefit. Let's start with the ebony soul wood. A middle stage true severing stage expert walked out and glanced at the remaining black blood spirit Zoisha. After that, he took a piece of the ebony soul wood and found a corner to cultivate. Soon, the ebony soul wood was divided up and a few leaves of the underworld soul grass were also taken by a few people. Let's take a scarlet underworld flower first. I feel that I'm about to break through my bottleneck. Perhaps I can use this to break through. An expert muttered and took a stalk of scarlet underworld flower. As for the others, they didn't take anything and just sat down cross-legged to cultivate. Not long later, the desolate ancient space quietened down. A faint fluctuation rose from everyone's body and the power of law flowed endlessly. Rays of light intertwined with each other, forming a dreamlike color. The black blood spirit Zoisha can nourish the soul. I hope that with your help, my comprehension will improve by another step. Du Xiaofu thought in his heart as he slowly refined the black blood spirit Zoisha. This object was nourished by an endless amount of blood spirit Zoisha and condensed a boundless vitality. Under its effect, a living being's soul force would receive a terrifying upgrade. And with the improvement of one's soul force, one would become more familiar with everything in the world. The fluctuations of the power of law would also be easier to grasp. As a result, one's comprehension would increase. This was the terrifying effect of the black blood spirit Zoisha. It was also because of this that when the person from the Blue Feather Holy Land saw Du Xiaofu pick it, he didn't even think about it before directly attacking. Hoo! From Du Xiaofu's Naiwen Palace, waves of bloody aura spread out and enveloped his primordial spirit, producing a continuous sound. It was as if flames were burning steel, refining the power of his primordial spirit until it was crimson red. Hoo! At the same time, a large amount of green light flashed and shuttled back and forth, constantly pouring into his Yuan spirit, providing it with a steady stream of vitality to prevent the blood spirit Zoisha from harming his Yuan spirit. A black blood spirit Zoisha that could grow in a place filled with blood spirit Zoisha could easily imagine how terrifying its vitality was. And this vitality was like water used to quench steel. Its role was to make one's Yuan spirit more condensed and resilient. As time passed, under the repeated tempering, Du Xiaofu's Yuan spirit became more and more pure and transparent. The huge red-bone horse monkey form became more and more solid, and even the tiny impurities were removed, gradually becoming flawless. This was a fundamental improvement, tempering, causing Du Xiaofu's Yuan spirit to become more and more resilient. Time slowly flowed, and because the time inside the ancient desolate space was accelerated, Du Xiaofu didn't care much about how much time he spent here. Even if he cultivated here for 7 or 8 years, only 10 days would pass in the outside world, so the situation inside the divine demon battle realm wouldn't change much. Chi. Not only Du Xiaofu, but Yu Qingyan, Yu Qiyao, Ting Yuanshan, Yu Yuran, and the other late-stage true severing stage cultivators all had surging auras. Under the tempering of the black blood spirit Zoisha, their yuan spirits emitted much more profound fluctuations than before. As for the other experts who obtained the Black Soul Wood and Underworld Spirit Grass, they were all improving. Although their improvements were strong and weak, big and small, the terrifying auras were all linked together, surging in the ancient desolate space, appearing exceptionally magnificent. The law of the soul can actually be called the law of life. While tempering his yuan spirit, Du Xiaofu was also constantly comprehending new things. He knew that the law of the soul in the 33 heavens had another name, called the law of life. Life was the greatest miracle in this world. Whether it was the various powerful races, or the ant-like flowers, birds, fish, and insects, or even the grass and trees, they all had life. Their foundation was life force. However, the concept of the soul was a level higher than life. The soul was the product of the combination of life and wisdom. However, any life, under sufficient conditions, had the opportunity to produce its own intelligence, which was wisdom. Just like the demon spirits, it was like this. In the demon world of Shenwu world, Huolei Laozu was formed by a bolt of lightning and fire. The Blackwater monarch of the Blackwater River was formed by a river of blood. The Blackwater River military advisor's body was a willow tree. I'm still lacking a lot in the aspect of the law of the soul. If I want to explore a deeper level of the law of the soul, I need to first increase the strength of my yuan spirit, and then use my own body to create a bigger breakthrough. Du Xiaofu muttered in his heart, comprehending some things. Now, his cultivation of the law of the soul had only reached the early stage of true severing stage, and he did not have a thorough understanding of the great existence of life. Only by gaining a deeper understanding of himself would he be able to follow some clues to reach a higher level of the law of the soul. Black blood spirit Zoisha, refine. Thinking of this, Du Xiaofu stopped his own comprehension and began to refine the black blood spirit Zoisha with all his strength. His yuan spirit went through wave after wave of erosion, and under the hammering, it actually emitted a sonorous sound. After an unknown amount of time, when the red-bone horse monkey yuan spirit was refined to a point where it could no longer advance, Du Xiaofu stopped refining. At the same time, the black blood spirit Zoisha was almost exhausted. There was only a trace of medicinal power left, and after another wave, it all scattered. This feeling is really good. Du Xiaofu closed his eyes, and an incomparably wonderful feeling rose in his heart. He only felt that his yuan spirit and the various powers of heaven and earth had become much more intimate. The traces of the law of the soul were much easier to perceive than before, and also much clearer. This feeling was a little similar to a normal person's vision suddenly increasing by several times, and they could see many mysteries that were normally difficult to see. Chapter 28:33. This wonderful state caused Du Xiaofu to be incomparably overjoyed. To be able to become more intimate with the laws and principles of heaven and earth, the order of the great Tao, this was the pursuit of every life form that stepped onto the path of cultivation. Everything in the world was constructed from the laws. That was why it was so brilliant and varied. If one wanted to reach a higher boundary, then they had to gradually understand these laws and grasp them in their own hands, making themselves stronger. Du Xiaofu's goal was to cultivate the 4 great primal laws to the deepest level. Then, he would attack the immortal realm and walk a path that few people in the 33 heavens had ever dared to walk. He knew that this path would be extremely difficult. Just the 4 great primal laws were vast and boundless. Wanting to grasp all of them was not an easy matter. After that, when he attacked the immortal realm, no one knew what kind of hurdles he would face. This was because no one in the world had ever attempted this before. Even if he succeeded in breaking through to the immortal tier, there was still a very long way to go. It had to be known that merely the law of matter contained the various derivative states of metal, wood, water, fire, earth, wind, lightning, and so on. When he reached the severing reality tier, he had to grasp all these derivative states and reach perfection. And at the immortal realm, what he had to do was to fuse all of these laws together into one, condensing them into the source of the matter laws. Origin, tracing back to the source, this was the source of all laws and laws. Only by condensing the source strength could one be considered to have grasped the highest truths of the world. With every movement, one would carry the charm of nature. But while it was easy to say, it wasn't so easy to do. Otherwise, Chu Daoju, Ling Feng, Long San, Yutain, and the other immortal ninth-layer cultivators wouldn't have been trapped in that realm for so many years, unable to find a chance to break through and step into the meditative forgetfulness realm. Moreover, Du Xiaofu's ambitions were great. What he wanted to fuse wasn't as simple as just the matter laws. He wanted to condense all of the 4 great primal laws into the source strength. Not to mention doing this, just saying it out loud was enough to make the entire 33 heavens go crazy. My primordial spirit has improved by quite a bit. Let me try comprehending the various great laws. Du Xiaofu exhaled lightly and released his energy. He attempted to come into contact with the principal of Tianwu Academy, hoping to resonate with him once more. Through this, he would be able to improve his comprehension of the laws of space and time. However, after a long time, he was somewhat discouraged. Last time, with the help of Chu Daoju and the other 200 undyings, he finally had the chance to touch that faint frequency, resonating with the Dean's energy. However, this time was different. His own training was still too weak, and the things he comprehended were far from comparable to Chu Daoju and the others. As a result, he failed. He continued to work hard for a long time, but still couldn't enter that profound state. It seems that this matter still requires some luck. Du Xiaofu sighed softly. He opened his eyes and looked at the sleeping figure wrapped in light before closing them again. Since I can't resonate with the Dean of Tianwu Academy, I'll have to comprehend it myself. He thought to himself. With the improvement of his primordial spirit, he could pry into more of the laws of heaven and earth, as well as the mysteries of the universe. If he wanted to improve himself, he could rely on himself to comprehend it. Time flowed by unknowingly, and the years in the ancient desolate space felt like a day. In the blink of an eye, 5 years had passed, but only a few days had passed in the outside world. In these 5 years, Du Xiaofu continued to comprehend, and the aura on his body became more and more profound. The power of the scarlet pheasant monkey's primordial spirit was even stronger than before after being tempered thousands of times. Because of this, his attainments in the 4 great primordial laws had improved. Although he didn't make a breakthrough in his cultivation, there was still a significant improvement. In terms of the laws of time and soul, he had already reached the peak of true severing primary stage. There was only a small bottleneck blocking him from breaking through to true severing middle stage. In terms of the laws of space, he was also getting closer to perfection. He had grasped about 80 to 90% of it. As for the laws of matter, Du Xiaofu had already reached the peak of true severing late stage when he was in Qian Su Jinghua Heaven's Yamada-headed serpent clan. And this was because he had deliberately suppressed it. Otherwise, he could have borrowed the power of the void 8 trigrams to directly reach perfection, and then have the chance to break through to immortal. Cheng Yan, Cheng Yao, and the others have improved so much. Du Xiaofu woke up from his meditation and looked at the people sitting around him. A hint of surprise rose in his eyes. His eyes widened as he discovered that the auras on Yu Chengyan, Yu Chengyao, and the others had also become more and more condensed and terrifying. But what was even more shocking was that Meng Dongyang, Zhang Haoren, and Ting Yuanshan, these 3 fellows had extraordinary aptitudes to begin with, and had been at the peak of truth-severing stage for many years. At this moment, they had even charged to the consummate stage of truth-severing stage with a single sword strike, and had comprehended a complete primordial law. This was terrifying. The cultivation of true severing consummate stage was an absolutely powerful existence in any major force. Among the young disciples of the Jade Feather Holy Land who attacked them earlier, only 3 had reached true severing peak, but the Yuqing Divine Kingdom suddenly had 3 more. At this time, the auras of Meng Dongyang and the others were very restrained and not obvious at all. But just sitting there, they gave off a feeling of being engraved there. This blood demon Black Ganoderma is indeed worthy of its reputation of improving comprehension. It's really a rare treasure. Du Xiaofu could not help but sigh and click his tongue. The blood demon Black Ganoderma definitely played a crucial role in this outcome. It allowed the three to reach such a terrifying level after thousands of years of accumulation. It was not difficult for them to rank at the top of the supreme Chang-Rong heaven. It's a pity that Qingyan and Qingyao's accumulation is still a bit lacking. Otherwise, they could have used this opportunity to reach true severing peak directly. Du Xiaofu's gaze shifted to Yu Qingyan and Yu Qingyao. These two were much younger than Meng Dongyang and the other two. The difference in their cultivation time was more than 1,000 years. In a situation where the advantage in cultivation talent was not too big, this kind of gap in cultivation time was not easy to spread in a short period of time. I wonder what's the situation outside. Du Xiaofu saw that many people around him had woken up, but no one made a sound as they were afraid to disturb those who were cultivating in seclusion. He didn't say anything either. He just thought that there was a terrifying, ominous creature outside the desolate ancient space. He didn't know if it was still guarding nearby. That ominous creature was too terrifying. Its strength was not less than a third sky of immortal realm expert. With Du Xiaofu's current strength, he couldn't resist it at all. A creature condensed by the blood demon qi. It's another demon spirit. Du Xiaofu sighed inwardly and thought so. That ominous creature had appeared in the forest. After thousands of years of growth, it had some intellect. It was really intimidating. Its existence was the body of a demon spirit. Moreover, it was similar to the soul concubine. However, the soul concubine was a remnant soul. From this point of view, the two of them were fundamentally different. What? All of a sudden, Du Xiaofu's face stiffened while he was pondering. He suddenly thought of something. Many creatures in this world are born with intellect, like the human clan and the beast clan. But the demon spirits are different. They have their intellect. To some extent, they can interpret the life principle better. The more he thought about it, the more excited he became. It was like a raging fire was burning in his heart. If the ominous creature outside was condensed by the blood demon qi and it had intellect, it must be a life and soul that were born later. If he were to start from it, perhaps he would be able to learn more about the mysteries of the law of the soul? Du Xiaofu couldn't stop thinking. The more he thought about it, the more excited he was. He hated that he couldn't dissect that ominous creature to study its body and primordial spirit. However, thinking about how intimidating it was, Du Xiaofu couldn't help but shiver. If it wasn't an ordinary ominous creature, it would be really intimidating. If he wasn't careful, he would be slapped into a flat cake in just a blink of an eye. Moreover, the blood demon qi was really thick. It wasn't a joke. If too much of it got into his body, it would be really troublesome. In the worst case, it could even threaten his life. Thinking about this, Du Xiaofu felt like a bucket of cold water had been poured on his heart. Half of his heart was chilled. If that ominous creature was only at first sky of immortal realm, he would definitely try. But now, he could only shake his head with a forced smile. So worrying. Du Xiaofu was so upset. He squatted on the ground and sighed. The young disciples who had woken up were confused. They didn't know what was going on. Emperor God, why are you sighing? At this moment, a voice arose. It was Yu Yuran of the Broken Moon Palace. Her competence had also improved. She was now at the same level as Yu Qingyan and Yu Qingyao. I don't know if that big thing out there is still there. I want to catch it. Du Xiaofu's finger pointed at the void, lowering his head. Which big thing? Emperor God, are you talking about that ominous creature? Yu Yuran's red lips parted. She looked at Du Xiaofu disbelievingly. She didn't think that the Emperor God was joking. He wasn't the kind of person who would joke casually. However, although Yu Yuran didn't face that ominous creature herself, after hearing Du Xiaofu talk about it, she felt chills all over her body. Who would have thought that this guy was just sitting there and sighing left and right? He was actually trying to catch that ominous thing. This thief was really hard to imagine. Your Majesty wants that ominous creature. Could it be that you have some use for it? While many people were shocked, Meng Dongyang, Zhang Haoren, and Ting Yuanshan woke up one after another and looked at Du Xiaofu. After breaking through, they had settled down for a period of time. At this time, their cultivation had stabilized at the Great Circle of Truth severing stage. It's definitely useful. Do you have any ideas? Du Xiaofu didn't hide his thoughts. He told them that he wanted to make a breakthrough in the law of soul. Perhaps he could use that ominous creature to cultivate. But as soon as this idea came out, everyone was once again shocked. They all knew that Du Xiaofu's attainments in both the laws of matter and the laws of space were very deep, and they only felt that this guy might really walk the path of cultivating two primitive laws at the same time. But who would have thought that he was actually still obsessed with the laws of soul? This was truly frightening. Every young disciple was filled with awe towards His Majesty the Divine King. They couldn't even describe how much they worshipped him. In this regard, Du Xiaofu didn't explain much. He had his own ideas and didn't need others to agree with him. The three of us have just broken through, but if we want to fight that ominous creature, even if we join forces, I'm afraid it's not enough. Teng Yuanshan smiled bitterly and kept shaking his head. He also couldn't think of any good ideas. That ominous creature was extraordinary. With their cultivation, they would be directly smashed flat as soon as they appeared. I'm also worried about this. Du Xiaofu spread his hands and said helplessly, "Everyone, help me think about it. If we can get it into this space, I can easily suppress it." When he spoke, he lowered his eyes and didn't expect too much. Although the ancient desolate space was a domain that he had absolute control over, there had to be a way to let that ominous creature in. As long as we can get it in here? Meng Dongyang pondered for a moment and said, "That ominous creature is condensed from blood qi. The reason why it attacked us is that the aura of us living people has a nourishing effect on it. He came from the refining God temple and cultivated the law of soul, so he had a deeper understanding of the ominous creature." He thought for a while again and then said, "But we don't know how intelligent that ominous creature is. If it has only developed some ignorant consciousness, we can deceive it and maybe even have a chance to subdue it. This idea is worth a try." Du Xiaofu's eyes suddenly lit up and he became excited as if he had eaten a great tonic. After he finished speaking, he eagerly got out of the ancient desolate space and left a sentence that echoed in everyone's ears, "I'll go see if that big guy is still here." As his voice fell, the purple-robed figure had already left the space, leaving behind many young masters with wry smiles. His Majesty Shenhuang is really swift and decisive. Not only is he swift and decisive, but his actions are also absolutely crazy. I hope he can walk a path of absolute dominance and make all the geniuses of the 33 heavens pale in comparison. Space, matter, soul, three primitive laws. Just thinking about it is shocking. If he succeeds, our Yuqing divine kingdom will also have a day when we stand at the peak. Many people began to discuss fervently, sighing for Du Xiaofu. They found it hard to believe that there was really someone in this world who could surpass severing truth with three primitive laws and achieve an immortal body. However, the reality was even more terrifying than they imagined. Du Xiaofu's plan was to surpass severing truth with four primitive laws. On the other side, after Du Xiaofu left the ancient desolate space, he landed on a huge plain. Holy shit, all of this couldn't have been caused by that big guy, right? His gaze swept over the surroundings in amazement. The huge forest that originally stood tall had already turned into ashes at this time, and even the ground had been scraped 300 meters deep, revealing the brighter red soil. At this moment, looking around, the surrounding tens of thousands of miles was a flat land, extremely orderly. I wonder if that ominous thing is still nearby. Du Xiaofu flew in the void, releasing a vast aura from his body, which constantly spread out to the surroundings. Just as Meng Dongyang had said, that ominous thing was extremely thirsty for the majestic life force of living beings. Du Xiaofu wanted to use this method to lure it out. However, he flew for a long time and didn't find any movement. After a while, Du Xiaofu had almost stepped all over the huge plain, but he still couldn't find any trace of the ominous thing. "Let's go look in the forest again." He thought for a moment, then turned around and flashed into the distant forest. Du Xiaofu was very patient as he carefully searched everywhere. He was not in a hurry to find that ominous thing. In any case, there might be a chance to find some good treasures in this withered forest. He would just treat it as looking for opportunities. With this thought in mind, he continued to go deeper and deeper, shuttling back and forth in the forest. Against the bloody aura that filled the sky, he moved quickly. Needless to say, after more than 10 days, he really had a huge harvest again. When Du Xiaofu opened his mouth, he almost laughed out loud. In front of him was a place of yin tides. There were actually a few lush green leaves growing, gently swaying. Blood Jade Spirit Ginseng. It's actually the Blood Jade Spirit Ginseng. Pa. I'm rich. I'm rich. Pa. Du Xiaofu laughed wantonly, wishing that he could sing a song on the spot and dance with joy. In the heavenly spirit record that Master Duanmu Qiongtian gave him, there was a record of this item. Du Xiaofu recognized it at a glance. This Blood Jade Spirit Ginseng relied on endless spiritual energy to grow. It had an incomparably strong vitality and could bring back flesh and bones from the dead. As long as a strong person's body and soul were not completely destroyed, they could use this Blood Jade Spirit Ginseng to save them. This effect was heaven-defying. I'm rich. I'm rich. Du Xiaofu had never thought that he could have such a huge harvest this time. This was simply a gift from the heavens. There was no need to think anymore. He directly supported his own power of the law and enveloped a large area within it. Then, Du Xiaofu stretched out a hand and was about to pluck it. Chi! Just as he stretched out his hand, the few green leaves shook gently and gave off a sparkling light. Then, they directly drilled into the soil and disappeared. It really knows how to run. Du Xiaofu raised his eyebrows and was not surprised at all. The heavenly spirit record had stated that this Blood Jade Spirit Ginseng had the ability to burrow into the ground. It could seek good luck and avoid calamity. It was not so easy to pluck it. You won't be able to escape from my domain. Du Xiaofu licked his lips and laughed. Since he had already found the Blood Jade Spirit Ginseng, how could he let it escape? If he did not get such a treasure in his hands, he would be struck by lightning. Chapter 2834. Du Xiaofu's space domain had already expanded and covered a large area. As a rare elixir, the Blood Jade Spirit Ginseng had developed some consciousness and knew how to avoid danger. However, none of its movements could escape Du Xiaofu's control. With a flash, the purple-robed figure disappeared from the spot and appeared in another place. Don't run, come into my bowl. Du Xiaofu's eyes lit up. He swept out his palms and opened up a large area of law of light, surrounding the roots of the giant tree in front of him. He moved with all his strength and did not dare to hold back. The law of space and the law of matter intertwined to suppress it. He even summoned the 9 purple lightning profound cauldrons and placed them in different directions, ready to suppress it at any time. In terms of grade, the Blood Jade Spirit Ginseng was not inferior to the Black Blood Ganoderma. It was even slightly stronger and had the effect of burrowing into the ground. Previously, Yu Qingyan, Yu Qingyao, Zhang Haoren, Ting Yuanshan, and more than a dozen people worked with all their strength and spent a lot of time to pick the Black Blood Ganoderma. Therefore, in order to avoid any accidents, Du Xiaofu used all his skills to capture the Spirit Ginseng as soon as possible. Buzz, buzz, buzz. At the roots of the dead tree in front, a green light was emitted. It kept struggling, trying to escape from the suppression. However, no matter how the light moved, it could not escape from Du Xiaofu's full restraint. Not long after, Du Xiaofu let out a low shout and suddenly withdrew his hands. Following that, a huge carrot-shaped object appeared in Du Xiaofu's hands. It was difficult to hold it with both hands. This was the Blood Jade Spirit Ginseng. Its whole body was as clear as jade, blood red and translucent, and there was a strange light flowing around it. On one side, there were a few green leaves swaying. Under the prying of Du Xiaofu's primordial spirit, he could feel that it contained endless vitality. It was so majestic that it made one's hair stand on end. Not to mention the Spirit Ginseng's body, even the few green leaves contained a strong aura. I'm rich. I'm rich. I'm rich. Du Xiaofu's whole body was trembling with excitement. He could not close his mouth, and his small face was smiling like a flower. He quickly took out a huge jade Spirit Ginseng from his Cosmos bag. He put the Blood Jade Spirit Ginseng. After rejoicing in his heart for a while, Du Xiaofu once again walked through the forest, continuing to search for traces of the blood fiend. In the air, waves of baleful blood energy permeated the air, binding the entire space, and a vicious and evil aura surged. Is to come. Is to. Sure enough, just as Du Xiaofu opened his eyes to look, an incomparably tall and sturdy figure appeared not far away, and directly pounced on him. That huge foot stomped in the forest, crushing countless dead trees into pieces. What a big guy! Du Xiaofu looked at that ferocious spirit ginseng and could not help but be speechless. The last time they met, he was only in a hurry to escape, and did not have the time to look carefully. Now that he did not want to escape, he looked at it seriously. Through the monstrous scarlet aura on that ferocious spirit ginseng, Du Xiaofu could see that it was an existence that looked like a strange beast. Its whole body was covered with bone spikes, like knives of different shapes inserted into its body, and it was extremely ferocious. The ferocious spirit ginseng skin was red and green, and it was dark and gloomy. Its muscles were very strong, and it was releasing a sense of power. I wonder how the spiritual intelligence of this big guy has been activated. If it has a high level of intelligence, it will be difficult to deal with. Du Xiaofu murmured, and his whole body released a strong aura, which fluctuated in the void. He stood in the same place, motionless, and allowed the ferocious spirit ginseng to pounce on him. A huge palm covered the sky, accompanied by a pungent smell, and it wanted to smash Du Xiaofu into meat paste. Meng Dongyang had said that such a ferocious spirit ginseng was condensed from blood qi, and the energy of a living person had a nourishing effect on it. Therefore, after sensing Du Xiaofu's aura, it directly ran out, wanting to kill this human. Please don't be too smart. If you are too shrewd, it will really be difficult for me to deal with you. Du Xiaofu secretly prayed in his heart, hoping that this ferocious spirit ginseng's spiritual intelligence had not been activated too much, and it was still in a state of ignorance. Just as he was thinking, the terrifying palm in the sky had already swung down, and the entire surrounding world was trembling. Du Xiaofu's immortal Xian body directly burst open, and blood splattered everywhere. He silently calculated in his heart, and when he was about to be unable to hold on, he instantly opened up the ancient desolate space, and his whole body flashed into it. Roar! Seeing Du Xiaofu escape, the ferocious spirit ginseng let out a terrifying roar, and it seemed to be somewhat furious. Its palm hit the air, and with a loud bang, the entire ground was flattened. Big idiot, I'm here, come and catch me. At this moment, Du Xiaofu popped out of the ancient desolate space and shouted at the ferocious spirit ginseng. Roar! The ferocious spirit ginseng roared and directly chased after him, and another palm came flying through the air. Du Xiaofu did not dare to delay, and once again shrank his head and hid. This action caused the ferocious spirit ginseng to roar continuously, and it shook the sky until it exploded. When it was slightly quieter, Du Xiaofu popped out again. This time, he opened up the ancient desolate space and stood at the entrance. Yu Qingyan, Yu Qiao, Ting Yuanshan, Zhang Haoren, and the others all walked to Du Xiaofu's side, and each of them released an incomparably vast aura that fluctuated in the ancient desolate space. Come and catch me quickly! Du Xiaofu roared, and winked at the ferocious spirit ginseng. Roar! The ferocious spirit ginseng roared again, as if it was tearing the heavens and splitting the earth, and it shook the souls of the people at the entrance of the ancient desolate space. Hide quickly! Du Xiaofu screamed strangely, and led the people into the depths of the ancient desolate space. Under the unique influence of the ancient desolate space, the roar could no longer hurt them. However, he did not close the entrance, but still opened it wide, covering a large area. You must come in, there are so many of us waiting for you to eat us. Du Xiaofu murmured to himself, and could not help but think to himself. The reason why he did not close the ancient desolate space was to lure the ferocious spirit ginseng in, and then capture it. This ferocious spirit ginseng is really scary. However, the more ferocious the ferocious spirit ginseng is, the longer it will take for it to develop intelligence. According to my estimation, although he has some vague consciousness, he is still far from a complete form of intelligence. Our method should work. Meng Dongyang looked at the ferocious spirit ginseng and said with a grin. Sure enough, as he was speaking, the ferocious spirit ginseng stretched out a huge palm into the ancient desolate space and wanted to grab everyone and bring them out. However, Du Xiaofu and the others were hiding very deep. The ancient desolate space was very big, and the ferocious spirit ginseng's arm was not long enough to reach them. Quick! Everyone, release your aura and lure it in. Fatty Fan Yushu had come to Du Xiaofu's side, and suddenly turned around and shouted at the crowd. His small eyes were burning with excitement, and he had never felt so excited before. Chi. Under Fan Yushu's instructions, more than 20,000 people released their aura with all their might, and it formed a vast force that filled the ancient desolate space. This action caused the ferocious spirit ginseng to roar again and again. The aura of the living was too tempting for it, and it flew directly into the ancient desolate space. It really came in. Du Xiaofu was overjoyed, and his entire body was about to jump up. He really did not expect that it would really succeed like this. Meng Dongyang's idea was really wonderful. With a loud roar, most of the ferocious spirit ginseng's body drilled in, and it faced Du Xiaofu and the others directly. It let out another low roar, and its two large palms attacked the crowd. Since you've entered my territory, then you'll have to lie down for me. Du Xiaofu chuckled and suddenly mobilized the power of the ancient desolate space to suppress the ferocious spirit ginseng. The two terrifying palms and monstrous power were instantly wiped out by the invisible order and dissipated into nothingness. Along with it, the ferocious spirit ginseng's body was also driven and fell heavily to the ground. At this time, the ferocious spirit ginseng finally felt the difference in this space. It instinctively sensed the danger and wanted to retreat. Still want to escape? No way. Du Xiaofu snorted coldly and instantly closed the entrance of the ancient desolate space. The ferocious spirit ginseng's huge tail swept behind it, trying to force it open, but no matter how monstrous its power was, it could not shake the ancient desolate space at all. Under such circumstances, Du Xiaofu quickly mobilized his power and repeatedly suppressed the ferocious spirit ginseng. The ferocious spirit ginseng kept rolling on the ground and roaring continuously. It wasn't long before this ferocious beast was completely suppressed. Strands of energy of the laws condensed into the shape of chains that bound it firmly, causing it to be unable to move, and it lay on the ground like an enormous dead dog. Is this the monster formed by the ferocious spirit ginseng? Yu Qian, Ting Yuanshan, Yu Yuran, Fan Yushu, and the others all gathered around, carefully sizing up the ferocious spirit ginseng on the ground and exclaimed. This big guy was not an ordinary creature. It was formed by the boundless ferocious spirit ginseng of the divine demon battlefield after thousands of years. Although it looked like a ferocious spirit ginseng at this moment, its origin was the monstrous ferocious spirit ginseng. We're really crazy. A ferocious spirit ginseng that isn't weaker than a third sky of immortal realm monster has been taken down by us. Fan Yushu chuckled, seeming to be somewhat pleased with himself. Can you be more shameless? Next to him, an expert at the middle stage of true severing realms spat and said, if it weren't for His Majesty the Divine King's space, not to mention you, even if the old ancestor of your divine mystery sect came, he wouldn't be able to defeat it. Hearing such words, Fan Yushu scratched his head embarrassedly and sneered, not replying. Du Xiaofu ignored them and muttered to himself, fortunately, its intelligence hasn't fully matured. Otherwise, not to mention catching it, it wouldn't even be easy for us to escape. He rejoiced and felt that this was an extraordinary opportunity. With the help of this ferocious spirit ginseng, he should be able to make a big breakthrough in the law of souls by following the principles behind the formation of living beings and souls. This was a post-celestial life form. Even if it had the soul form of a living being, it would still leave behind deep traces of the law of souls. It was unlike the Xiantian life forms of the human race, beast race, tree monsters, and vine spirits. It was much more useful to find the origin of this ferocious spirit ginseng than Xiantian life forms. Begin seclusion and comprehend the law of souls. Du Xiaofu said as he looked at the ferocious spirit ginseng on the ground. He didn't think too much and sat cross-legged beside the dean of the Tianwu Academy. Following that, layers of formless spatial energy spread out and dragged the ferocious spirit ginseng to his side. Since it's a life form formed by the ferocious spirit ginseng, I'll just separate it into the original ferocious spirit ginseng. Du Xiaofu muttered as he pointed with his finger. Boundless power formed into sword-shaped rays of light that pierced into the ferocious spirit ginseng's body. At the same time, the law of souls rippled out and disintegrated the ferocious spirit ginseng layer by layer. Instantly, the ferocious spirit ginseng around Du Xiaofu began to rise and permeate every inch of space, enveloping him tightly. However, this ferocious spirit ginseng was extremely well controlled. It revolved around Du Xiaofu and didn't affect anyone else. Seeing Du Xiaofu's figure covered by the ferocious spirit ginseng, the 20,000-plus young disciples of the Yuqing Divine Kingdom were shocked. They all looked at the terrifying ferocious spirit ginseng with disbelief. The Divine Emperor is really crazy. That's the ferocious spirit ginseng that took countless years to form. He's actually sitting inside it just like that. Using the ferocious spirit ginseng to comprehend the true meaning of the law of souls. Who would dare to do such a thing? I'm afraid only His Majesty would dare to do such a thing. This isn't a method that ordinary people can think of. If this method really works, then His Majesty will definitely make great strides in his understanding of the law of souls. If that's the case, the Divine Emperor will have extremely high attainments in the three primordial laws of space, matter, and soul. If news of this were to spread, how many people would be scared to death? Everyone was left dumbfounded. This wasn't just because of Du Xiaofu's crazy actions of using the vicious creatures formed from blood demons to comprehend the laws of the soul, but also because of his achievements in the laws. In this world, there were few people that could compare with him. Even so, this fellow still wanted to improve in the law of souls. It was obvious that he wanted to use the three primordial laws to break through to the immortal realm. Let's continue our seclusion for a while. I have a feeling that he'll need a long time this time, Yu Qingyan said after watching for a while. That's right. With the time acceleration here, we don't have to worry about the situation outside. After the Divine Emperor wakes up, we'll go look for the primordial ruins. Meng Dongyang nodded in agreement. Then, everyone went into seclusion again. There was still a lot of ferocious spirit ginseng left behind. It was enough for some mid-stage true severing cultivators to break through. Huff, huff, huff. In the primordial space, Du Xiaofu was surrounded by a dense ferocious spirit ginseng. It was scarlet and terrifying, as thick as real blood. His entire body was soaked in it. The terrifying ferocious spirit ginseng constantly invaded every inch of his flesh and blood, causing Du Xiaofu's body to rot. Even with the full power of the immortal Xian body, he couldn't repair it in time. Looks like this blood jade spirit ginseng is going to be used up now. Du Xiaofu was a little distressed. He took out the spirit ginseng that he had just obtained from his cosmos bag and used his power to dissolve it. It turned into a clear spring that flowed in his body. Under the effect of this precious medicine, the corrosive power of the ferocious spirit ginseng was quickly dissolved. As the medicinal power continued to dissolve, his body finally returned to its original state. The ferocious spirit ginseng could no longer harm him. Begin to explore the wonders of life and soul. Du Xiaofu was a little excited. He didn't think anymore and immersed himself in it. The scarlet demonic monkey's primordial spirit pervaded around his body. At this time, although the ferocious spirit ginseng had been broken down into ferocious spirit ginseng, it did not affect its essence. It still had a strong life and soul fluctuation. Du Xiaofu's primordial spirit ginseng permeated everywhere, constantly prying into the mysteries within. In this kind of situation, time flew by. Unknowingly, 10 years had passed in the primordial space. In the outside world, more than a month had also passed. During this time, Yu Qingyan, Ting Yuanshan, Zhang Haoren and the others woke up more than once. Through cultivation, they all made progress, but they didn't make any major breakthroughs. And among the other 20,000 people, some of the mid-stage and early-stage true severing cultivators improved a little faster. When they woke up, they saw that Du Xiaofu's state had been maintained. It seemed like he hadn't stopped for a while. All of them didn't disturb him, and they just silently cultivated as they waited. In other words, when Du Xiaofu was in closed-door cultivation and comprehending the soul laws with all his might, two figures woke up from their cultivation at the deepest depths of the Fiend God battlefield. These two figures were precisely Dongli Qihuang and Qin Yan, who'd followed the millions of young disciples to enter the Fiend God battlefield. After they entered the Fiend God battlefield, they directly arrived at the deepest depths and entered into closed-door cultivation. They didn't participate in the competition for any fortuitous encounters. I've finally recovered to the immortal realm. This feeling is truly too great. Dongli Qihuang wore a blood-red robe. His eyes were closed as he sensed the changes in his strength, and he spoke with extreme pleasure. How many years has it been? How many times have the two of us reincarnated and cultivated? We've only recovered this little bit of strength. Chen Yan's expression was gloomy instead, and he seemed to be slightly dissatisfied with his current cultivation. During the battle during the ancient times, the strengths of Pangu, exalted heavenly master, and the others were too strong. Even Lord was suppressed. The two of us were able to survive and have the opportunity to cultivate to this level. It's already very difficult. Dongli Qihuang sighed lightly as he recalled some matters of the past. Since we've awakened the memories of the ancient times, it isn't too difficult for Lord and us to reach our strongest state. However, we might not have much time left. Those old fellows hidden in the 33 heavens will absolutely not allow us to recover to our peak. Chapter 28:35. Chen Yan gazed at the sky while his vital energy was restrained to the extreme, and he didn't reveal even the slightest bit of his original ferocious aura. There really isn't much time left. The curtains to the war are about to be drawn once more. So long as my lord recovers to the peak this time, then under the circumstances that Pangu and Exalted Celestial aren't here, no one in the 33 heavens will be able to stop the rise of my devil race. A wisp of a gloomy smile suddenly appeared on the corners of Dongli Qihuang's mouth, and then two bright rays of light shot out from his eyes as he spoke. Hee. Since we've won this war, then from today onward, the 33 heavens will be the territory of the devil race, and it'll be owned by the devil race. Chen Yan smiled as well, and then he licked his lips in an extremely evil manner and said, "Moreover, the living beings of all the worlds will become our nourishment. The devil race will definitely transform amidst slaughter, sublimate amidst a sea of blood, and become even stronger amidst the scarlet red that covers the sky." When he thought of this, his entire body couldn't help but tremble slightly, and he seemed to be extremely excited. It was as if he'd seen the scene of the devil race's experts covering the entire 33 heavens, and all the experts would be suppressed and become food for the devil race. After the war in the 33 heavens ends, we have to go take a look at the 3,000 worlds as well. Dongli Qihuang's pupils constricted, and he said coldly, "The 3,000 worlds didn't exist when this world was born. I really want to see exactly what sort of place it is and how much benefit it can bring to my devil race." After he finished speaking, his entire body emanated waves of dense bloodthirsty aura, and even space was corroded and penetrated. We can't let down our guard too much. The Lord of the 3,000 worlds, Lu Xiaoyu, is extremely strong. Even though we haven't really come into contact with him, a strand of my lord's soul core that transformed into a fiend god was easily suppressed by him, and we could only rely on the uniqueness of Divine Battle World to avoid him. Chen Yan spoke with a slightly solemn tone. Besides that, Du Xiaofu's existence is an enormous threat as well. So long as he's alive, I won't be able to rest at ease. Exactly. That kid Du Xiaofu's growth is extremely swift. If it wasn't for the memories of my past life, we wouldn't be able to compare to him at all. We must get rid of him sooner or later. Otherwise, there will be endless trouble for our demon race. Dongli Qihuang's eyes turned ferocious as he stared into the void. His killing intent was obvious. Overbearing killing intent arose in Qin Yan's heart as well. Du Xiaofu was a person whom the two of them had been enemies since a long time ago. He was indeed a rare genius. Back in Shenwu world, the two of them used everything they had, but still couldn't kill him. And more than 100 years ago in the Qian Su Jinghua heaven, they even invited the Taisher demonic dragon, the Green Blood Giants and the Divine Netherworld clan, these three great clans to take action, but they still couldn't take it down. As long as that purple-robe youth was alive, he was definitely the greatest threat to the devil race. He had to be eliminated as soon as possible. We came to this ancient battlefield with an important purpose. On the one hand, we want to recover our strength. On the other hand, we want to kill Du Xiaofu. Here, it's not easy for the experts of the outside world to interfere, so this is an excellent opportunity. Chen Yen pondered for a short while before he spoke slowly. The Fiend God battlefield was filled with the young disciples of the Supreme Changrong Heaven, and they'd come here for the sake of tempering themselves and improving themselves. During this process, battles would surely arise, and those old fellows wouldn't interfere too much in the competition of the younger generation. So to Dongli Qihuang and Chen Yen, this was the best opportunity to kill Du Xiaofu. We absolutely can't allow any mishaps to occur this time. Du Xiaofu must die. Dongli Qihuang suddenly swung his fist and fiercely smashed it into the void, causing a terrifying black hole to appear in space. We can't delay any longer. If a heaven-defying figure appears among the disciples of the various powers that have entered this place and is able to rely on the fortune here to quickly break through to the immortal realm, then it'll be extremely troublesome for us. Chen Yen pondered for a moment before he spoke. If it was in the outside world, it wouldn't be easy for ordinary young disciples to break through. The people that had entered this place had only cultivated for a few thousand years, and they were still very young, so it was simply impossible for them to break through to the immortal realm. But it was different in the Fiend God battlefield. There were countless fortuitous encounters here, and if the strongest disciple of any holy land obtained a heaven-defying fortune, then it wasn't impossible for him to break through to the immortal realm in a short period of time. Even though this possibility was extremely small, Chen Yen didn't want to take such a risk. At this moment, the two demon attendants had just recovered their cultivation bases at the first sky of the immortal realm, so it was relatively easy for them to deal with a group of true Severing Realm experts. But if an immortal realm expert appeared among them, then it would absolutely be a huge problem. It's time to find Du Xiaofu. Dongli Qihuang stood up, glanced at Chen Yen and said, "Let's go. I presume he's improved during these days in this ancient battlefield." After he finished speaking, he silently vanished on the spot. It was extremely strange. No matter how much he's improved, Du Xiaofu won't be able to escape death this time. No matter how fast he's improved, it's impossible for him to recover faster than the two of us. Chen Yen coldly snorted, and his entire body suddenly exploded, turning into a bloody mist. Then, this bloody mist began to wriggle, seeping into the void bit by bit, leaving no trace behind. The place instantly became eerily quiet, as if the two people just now had never appeared at all. There was only endless terrifying power circulating, fluctuating with strange and indescribable brilliance. In the desolate ancient space, Du Xiaofu silently cultivated for another 70 years. Adding the 10 years he had spent previously, he had spent a total of 80 years. In these 80 years, the scenery outside his body didn't change much. It was still the same as before, with the blood and evil energy surging and filling the air. As for the other 20,000 experts, some of them improved very quickly. Several people who were originally at the peak of the God-seizing realm directly broke through the threshold of the true Severing Realm. They all had the primordial qi given to them by their sects, making a breakthrough. Among the experts at the early stage of the true Severing Realm, there were 4 or 5 people who had stepped into the middle stage, and their strength had greatly improved. However, the close to 100 middle stage and late stage true Severing Realm experts didn't improve so much. Their strength was originally very strong, and it wasn't easy to improve again. But after more than 80 years of cultivation, the aura on everyone's body had become much more condensed, and their foundation was stable. The Divine Emperor is still comprehending. I don't know how long it will take. More than 80 years have passed, and it's been almost 10 months in the outside world. I don't know if anything major has happened in the Divine Devil battlefield. It would be great if we could go out and take a look. Let's wait a little longer. When His Majesty wakes up, we'll continue to explore together. Everyone was discussing. They didn't know how long Du Xiaofu would need to cultivate this time. However, everyone knew in their hearts that their Divine Emperor had spent such a long time cultivating. When he woke up, he would definitely have a great harvest. They were somewhat expectant. They wanted to see how far Du Xiaofu's space could go, and whether or not he could make great progress in the law of the soul. But at the same time, everyone felt somewhat helpless. This desolate ancient space was a sealed place. If Du Xiaofu didn't take the initiative to open it, they couldn't leave at all. From the time they entered this ancient forest until now, almost a year had passed in the outside world. No one knew whether or not something major would happen. Those people from the 35 Holy Lands and 71 Divine Nations, whether or not they had discovered some great benefits, or whether or not a terrifying battle had broken out. Huff, huff, huff. Just as everyone was talking, a sudden sound came from where Du Xiaofu was. Hey, there's movement. Zhang Haoren raised his eyebrows and quickly looked over. The others also cast their gazes at the place where the murderous aura was pervading. They saw that the terrifying and boundless scarlet power suddenly began to shrink, receding like the tide, and gradually becoming smaller. Following that, the figures of Du Xiaofu and the sleeping person on the ground appeared in everyone's line of sight. Has the Divine Emperor finished his seclusion? Some people looked at the purple-robed youth who was sitting cross-legged with his eyes closed and muttered. The Divine Emperor's aura has changed again. It's very deep and difficult to understand. His body seems to have some special charm, and it's very different from before. Is this because of the breakthrough in the law of the soul? He really used that ominous object and made great gains. Good. Our Majesty is really amazing. I feel like I can't suppress my admiration for him anymore. The 20,000 people couldn't help but begin to whisper. Every pair of eyes that looked at Du Xiaofu were filled with endless amazement. Under their perception, Du Xiaofu had become even more elusive than before. His aura was as vast as the sea, as deep as the abyss. Needless to say, this was definitely a sign of a breakthrough. He must have made great progress in the law of the soul. In this way, when His Majesty the Divine Emperor faced enemies in the future, he would be able to use the law of the soul to fight. Then, just what kind of terrifying realm would his strength reach? Buzz, buzz, buzz. After the baleful blood energy completely entered Du Xiaofu's body, his body emitted waves of fierce fluctuations, shaking the void. What followed was a pressure that was powerful enough to make one's primordial spirit tremble, pressing down on everyone's primordial spirit. What a terrifying power. This is the power of the law of the soul. I feel like I can't take it anymore. Someone suddenly cried out in alarm. His body shook violently, and he almost collapsed to the ground. He knelt down in front of Du Xiaofu. I feel it too. It's too terrifying. No, help me up. Immediately, many people began to cry out. At first, it was only some God-seizing realm cultivators. Later, even dozens of true severing realm cultivators could no longer resist. It was as if they were facing the might of the heavens. One after another, they fell to the ground with a plop. Fortunately, Yu Chengyan, Ting Yuanshan, Zhang Haoren, and other true severing realm late stage and true severing realm late stage and peak true severing realm cultivators acted in time, preventing everyone from being injured under this terrifying pressure. They quickly retreated a lot, almost forced to the corner of the ancient desolate space, far away from Du Xiaofu. Although Yu Chengyan and others could still hold on, their situation was not very good. Thick beads of sweat appeared on their foreheads, and their hair was all wet. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Layers of strange light emitted from Du Xiaofu's body, spreading out in the void, enveloping the entire ancient desolate space. A monstrous aura was rising, and waves of a different kind of power was emitted. It contained endless life aura and soul fluctuations, forming law patterns that could be seen with the naked eye. This is the sign of the law of the soul approaching perfection. Meng Dongyang suddenly cried out in panic. His eyes were wide open, filled with disbelief. He came from the refining God temple, and his cultivation was in the law of the soul. Moreover, he had already broken through to perfection. Once the opportunity arrived, he could begin to attempt to break through to the immortal realm. Therefore, at this time, the power of law on Du Xiaofu's body was seen through by him. It was the power of the law of the soul approaching perfection. In other words, Du Xiaofu had already reached the peak of the true severing realm late stage in the law of the soul. This was too terrifying. In a short 70 years, among the countless outstanding talents that had appeared in the 33 heavens since ancient times, just how many of them had been able to achieve this? The Divine Emperor really is abnormal. Everyone was shocked. Meng Dongyang's words made them feel like they were going crazy. Many people opened their mouths but couldn't say a word. After a long time, they thought that only the word abnormal was enough to describe Du Xiaofu's comprehension ability. Terrifying, really terrifying. Fatty Fan Yushu raised his trembling arm and wiped the sweat from his forehead. Even his lips were trembling. When he entered the origin space 100 years ago, Du Xiaofu was only slightly stronger than him. But now, the gap between the two was getting bigger and bigger, to the point where it was difficult to surmount. Fan Yushu asked himself. No matter how heaven-defying his luck was, it would be difficult for him to catch up to the purple-robed youth in this life. He Zibai, Yu Chengliang, Yu Qingyu, and the others had the same feeling. Especially for He Zhixin, Duan Yizong, and Yu Qingxi, they had all stepped into the true severing realm around the same time as Du Xiaofu. But now, they were still at the peak of the early true severing realm. If they wanted to step into the middle true severing realm, they didn't know how many years it would take, but Du Xiaofu was already at the peak of the late true severing realm. But this wasn't the key. The key was that this guy cultivated the 3 primeval laws. In space, matter, and soul, he had reached the late true severing realm. How the hell did he want others to live? Compared to him, all of them were trash, complete and utter trash. We can't compare with him, it's too demoralizing. Yu Qingxi revealed a bitter smile, shook his head, and said, "How is this cultivating? This is simply flying, okay?" Yu Yuran stroked her smooth forehead and sighed. "It's simply despairing. I can't see where my future hope lies." He Zhibai's handsome face was squeezed together like a bitter gourd. We have to constantly remind ourselves that he is our divine emperor. He is so extraordinary. Duan Yizong thought for a while and suddenly said this. After saying this, he nodded seriously and affirmed again, "Yes, that's it." When everyone heard this, they couldn't help but laugh bitterly. This idea was indeed excellent. At the very least, it would make them feel much better when compared with Du Xiaofu. Buzz, buzz, buzz. On Du Xiaofu's body, the fluctuations continued to spread out. At the same time that the law of soul produced a rhythm, the law of space, the law of matter, and the law of time were naturally released and began to produce a strange rhythm together. At the same time, the frequency of this fluctuation was constantly changing, sometimes strong and sometimes weak, sometimes slow and sometimes fast. The Divine Emperor has actually mastered the law of time. After many experts captured the fluctuation, they couldn't help but raise their eyebrows and exclaim, What the fuck?" It was unknown who cursed in a low voice, but they had nothing to say. Everyone ignored this curse and just looked motionlessly at the purple-robed youth sitting in the distance. Not long after, an even more shocking scene appeared again. The frequency of the vibration changed again and again in the light of the law of time, and finally, at a certain moment, it suddenly stagnated and stabilized. In the next moment, the figure lying on the ground beside Du Xiaofu also surged with a bright light. The two of them, one sitting and one lying, intertwined with the power of law and started to faintly resonate. In an instant, the power of law in the entire desolate ancient space transformed into a terrifying storm that wreaked havoc in all directions. Yu Qingyan and the others had nowhere to retreat. This storm of laws was very ferocious, and because they had to take care of the other 20,000 people, it was very strenuous for them to resist. However, they couldn't open the desolate ancient space, so they could only grit their teeth and bitterly hold on. Who is that sleeping person on the ground? He seems to be very powerful. Many people's backs were drenched in cold sweat as they looked at the Tianwu Academy principal lying on the ground and muttered. After they entered the desolate ancient space, they had already seen that figure sleeping. However, as this concerned the Divine Emperor's personal secret, no one asked about it. But now, after Du Xiaofu's law resonated with the power of that figure, it was actually brought to an extremely high level. A vast aura spread across the space, releasing a profound and obscure fluctuation. Even Meng Dongyang, Zhang Haoren, and Ting Yuanshan, who were at the perfection stage of truth-severing, were unable to see through it. It was obvious that the strength of that sleeping person far surpassed them. At the very least, he was an immortal realm expert. The resonance of laws happened to him again? At the front of the crowd, Yu Qingyao's red lips moved slightly with shock. After she returned to the transcendent Chang-Rong heaven from the outside world, she had heard many things about Du Xiaofu. Furthermore, the imperial ancestor, Martial Uncle Chu, and the others had told her that there was an unparalleled expert sleeping in Du Xiaofu's desolate ancient space. Moreover, he had a deep relationship with their Yu family. When he was in the Qian Su Jinghua heaven, Du Xiaofu had once coincidentally resonated with the sleeping person, and from then on, he had made great progress in the law of space. And now, the same situation as before seemed to be happening once again. This caused Yu Qingyao to be incomparably shocked. Chapter 28-36. It wasn't just Yu Qingyao. As the other powerhouses looked at Du Xiaofu's state, they couldn't suppress the shock in their hearts. However, all of this was just the beginning. At the same time that Du Xiaofu's space, matter, and soul laws intertwined, an even more mysterious fluctuation rippled out once more. This fluctuation circulated silently, and no one could see it. However, it truly existed. Du Xiaofu's body was wrapped in it, as if he was placed in another era, isolated from the present world. He was in a completely different time and space from everyone else. Time. This is the time laws. Zhang Haoren almost jumped up as he wantonly screamed. His heart was filled with shock. This shock was no small matter. Time laws. The others were also shocked. Du Xiaofu's strongest laws had always been space and matter laws. Today, in the desolate ancient space, he had borrowed the power of that ominous object to break through the soul laws. That was one thing, but who would have thought that he would actually resonate with the time laws? Under everyone's perception, they could clearly feel that the sleeping figure lying on the ground, besides the space laws, also had fluctuations of the time laws. Du Xiaofu, on the other hand, was producing a terrifying rhythm. Your Majesty the Divine Emperor, this is defying the heavens. A powerhouse's eyes nearly popped out of their sockets. He fiercely swallowed a mouthful of saliva as he spoke. In the 33 heavens, the vast majority of life forms, after reaching the truth-severing boundary, would only choose a single primal law to cultivate with all their might. Only this way could they be more focused. The principle of biting off more than one could chew was something everyone understood. Even if there were an extremely small number of powerhouses with outstanding talent who could cultivate two primal laws, such existences were absolutely rare. Among their peers, perhaps there wouldn't even be several hundred people in the 33 heavens. And among these several hundred people, how many would be able to successfully surpass the truth-severing boundary with two laws and reach the immortal realm? As for cultivating three primal laws at the same time, that was even more unimaginable. Not to mention, this fellow Du Xiaofu had actually cultivated all four primal laws at the same time. If this situation were to spread to the outside world, it would absolutely cause all cultivators to go crazy. What kind of heaven-defying feat was this? If the Divine Emperor can really surpass the immortal realm with all four primal laws, then I'm afraid he'll be able to rival the mid-level immortal realm at the first heavens. At the very least, he'll be able to reach the strength of the fourth heavens, or even higher. Meng Dongyang's entire body was Xian Yu Qingyao was Meng Dongyang's words. The shock they had received today was simply too great. Every one of them had received an unimaginable shock. Doos, they were all in a state, they were all in shocks, they were unable to recover. Wang's was boundary, fuss? Not long after, the power of all the laws had shrunk quite a bit. They no longer danced wildly in the desolate ancient space, but gathered into a ball of law light. In this way, the desolate ancient space looked more like an independent world. Inside, the four primal laws were constantly evolving, fiercely colliding, and setting off all kinds of strange phenomena. Everything that could be seen and sensed in the greater thousand worlds was contained within it. As the power of the laws condensed, the pressure on Yu Qingyan, Yu Qingyao, and the others all retreated. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief. The pressure they had just endured was too great. If it had continued, they definitely wouldn't have been able to resist until the end. Evolving the laws and engraving the greater thousand worlds. Who in the world can do this? Yu Qingyan's handsome face was filled with indescribable shock as he muttered to himself. He could clearly feel the four primal laws appearing on Du Xiaofu's body. As they intertwined with each other, they evolved into various Dharma images. Although these Dharma images were still far from being real, it was enough to shock the world. He knew that when Du Xiaofu broke through to the immortal realm, everything would be closer to being real. The soul law has broken through, but the time law still needs to break through. Looks like we have to wait a little longer. Teng Yuanshan tried his best to suppress the emotions in his heart as he spoke in a natural tone. No matter. If the Divine Emperor can have such a terrifying improvement, it's worth it even if we have to wait 1,000 years. That's right. His Majesty's attainments in the four primal laws are deeper. We have more confidence in competing in the Fiend God battlefield. When we go out with the Divine Emperor again, I'm afraid that even if the disciples of the Holy Lands and Divine Kingdoms join forces, they won't be a match for him. Unless someone can be one step ahead and step into the immortal realm first. Only then can they join forces and fight the Divine Emperor. But the possibility of this is close to zero. Even if you search the entire 33 heavens, you won't be able to find a second person like the Divine Emperor, let alone the supreme Chang Rong heaven. Many people opened their mouths to speak, and their faces were extremely stiff. They were willing to wait. Du Xiaofu's improvement was a good thing for everyone. The stronger he was, the more benefits the Yu Qing Divine Kingdom would be able to obtain in the celestial devil battlefield under his leadership. Let's continue cultivating. Yu Qingyao looked in Du Xiaofu's direction once more before turning around. She found a place to sit down and entered a state of cultivation. Seeing this, the others followed suit. No one knew how long it would take for Du Xiaofu to awaken. While waiting, they couldn't afford to waste any time. No matter what, they had to improve themselves. Only then would they be able to catch up to the Divine Emperor and not fall too far behind. Time flew by like a white steed, silently passing by. Du Xiaofu's condition persisted for a very long time. He continued to comprehend and follow the rhythm produced by the resonance of the laws to comprehend the profound and vast principles. The power of time and space that the principle of Tianwu Academy possessed was simply too overwhelming. To Du Xiaofu, it was undeniably several times stronger than before. He had already reached the meditative realm and was currently breaking through to the third level of the meditative realm, looking through reincarnation. He had already completed the fusion of the laws of time and space in the immortal realm and grasped the source of the two primordial laws. The principal of Tianwu Academy was already walking on a deeper path and had come into contact with a deeper level of the Great Tao. What he pursued was the source of the Great Tao. If the four sources of laws were the most fundamental existences in the world, they were the foundation of everything. Then the source of the Great Tao was the source of the laws. Only by grasping the source of the Great Tao could one become the strongest living being in the world. However, it was clear that this path was extremely difficult. The principal of Tianwu Academy had been in a deep slumber in the divine martial world for countless years. Even now, he was still trapped in the third level of the meditative realm. His awakening was still far in the future. And this also made one realize why there were so few forgotten powerhouses in the 33 heavens that had appeared in the world. The principal of Tianwu Academy was still very far away from the source of the Great Tao. Right now, he had only come into contact with a deeper level of the Great Tao. Of course, to Du Xiaofu, this level was already unfathomable. He didn't even have the qualifications to come into contact with it. The layers of the source of the laws of time and space were trembling. Borrowing this mighty force, Du Xiaofu continuously dissected the formless traces of the laws of time and space. Those strange traces were slowly being sorted out by him. Close to 110 years passed by in the blink of an eye. Finally, at this moment, the ripples of the laws of time and space on Du Xiaofu's body had risen to an extremely terrifying level. The independent world around him became more and more solid, exuding a terrifying aura. As a result, the entire desolate ancient space trembled violently. Layers of boundless ocean-like energy constantly battered this space, as if a terrifying world was suppressing it. However, the desolate ancient space was something that the principal of Tianwu Academy had refined. Although the tremors produced by Du Xiaofu's body were terrifying, it wasn't enough to truly shake this space. However, Yu Qingyan, Ting Yuanshan, Zhang Haoren, Meng Dongyang, Yu Yuran, and the others were different. They were immediately jolted awake. Everyone looked in Du Xiaofu's direction in disbelief. They unleashed all of their strength without holding back to maintain their balance and protect the other experts at the same time. The power of the laws of time on the Divine Emperor's body has also risen to the peak. At the front of the crowd, Zhang Haoren stuck out his tongue and licked his lips. He felt that his lips were slightly chapped. The 4 primordial laws have all reached the peak of the late true severing stage? Yu Yuran said softly, her beautiful face filled with shock. Just as they were looking at Du Xiaofu, who was wrapped in a ball of energy that felt like a real world, opened his eyes with a swoosh. He was sitting there cross-legged, but he looked as if he was isolated from the world and possessed a different kind of charm. Since I've already reached this step, I might as well not suppress it anymore. Let's all reach true severing perfection. Du Xiaofu muttered to himself as he felt the increase in his strength. After he finished speaking, he looked at the people in the corner of the desolate ancient space. Everyone, leave the desolate ancient space. Du Xiaofu let out a soft shout. Then, with a thought, he opened up the desolate ancient space, and a gap appeared. The Divine Emperor will definitely cause an even bigger commotion. We might be in danger if we stay here. Let's leave together. Let's go. Under the lead of the 3 true severing perfection and true severing perfection stage experts, the 20,000 people quickly flashed out of the space and disappeared through the gap. Du Xiaofu looked at this scene and sealed the space again. Then he closed his eyes again. 4 great primitive laws, break for me. His voice was deep and he suddenly shouted. Immediately, waves of energy, like a flood that had been opened, were no longer suppressed and brazenly charged into the void. Rumble. In the desolate ancient space, there was a vast sound like a thunderclap. In addition, all kinds of strange scenes were also evolving, being destroyed again and again, and reborn again and again. When he was cultivating in the Yamada-headed serpent clan of Qian Su Jinghua Heaven, Du Xiaofu could have directly broken into the true severing perfection stage in the material laws. However, at that time, he was forcibly suppressed. Because his ambition was very big, he wanted to make a breakthrough in the 4 great primitive laws at the same time. And now, this opportunity was ripe. In the material laws, he only needed to release all of his power, and he could naturally break through. In the soul laws, after using that ominous item to cultivate, he had already reached a level that was only a step away from the true severing perfection stage. He could easily break through. In addition, as he resonated with the power of laws on the Tianwu Academy's body, the time laws were also approaching perfection. As for the space laws, he had already comprehended them completely. Chi. Following Du Xiaofu's continuous attacks, the light of laws shone brightly. Resplendent, dark, profound, obscure, and all kinds of other charms rose endlessly. These charms each represented a type of power of laws, and they were the derivative forms of the four great primitive laws. Finally, at a certain moment, all the power of laws reached the peak, and they could no longer be broken through. The true severing perfection stage had been broken through by Du Xiaofu. I might as well try to break through to the immortal level in one go. Du Xiaofu felt the changes in the power in his body. While he was happy, he also felt a surge of desire. Breaking through from the true severing perfection stage to the immortal level was a huge threshold. Who knew how many geniuses and heroes had been stopped by it? It could be said that the number of true severing cultivators in a large world could be innumerable. However, when it came to the immortal level, Du Xiaofu knew from his experience in the Qian Su Jinghua heaven that there were only a few 100,000 immortal level experts in a large world. From this, it could be seen how difficult it was to break through to the immortal level. That profound threshold was like a heavenly chasm. However, Du Xiaofu still wanted to give it a try. The temptation of a whole new world was simply too great. Only by reaching the immortal level could one become the strongest person in the 33 heavens. Of course, this was under the condition that the meditative forgetfulness stage did not appear. Du Xiaofu acted as soon as he thought of it. The four great primitive laws surged, releasing a vast aura. That terrifying power danced in the air, setting off a world-destroying storm in the desolate ancient space. It swept in all directions, and it could instantly destroy everything. However, it was fortunate that this place was refined by a meditative forgetfulness stage expert. Although Du Xiaofu's power was too terrifying, it could not cause much damage to the desolate ancient space. As for the dean himself, there was no need to talk about him. Although he was in a deep slumber, there was still a formless energy protecting his body at all times, preventing any tyrannical power from getting close to him. This won't do. There's no sign of me breaking through at all. Du Xiaofu had worked hard for a long time, but it was to no avail. He could not even touch the threshold of the immortal level, let alone break through. After thinking for a while, he decided to retract his power and sank into deep thought. True severing, true severing, true severing, severing the cage and reconstructing one's true self. In this realm, living beings need to get rid of all obstacles and seek the power of the four great primitive laws. At the very least, they need to grasp all the derived forms of one of the four great primitive laws to reach perfection. As he pondered, he muttered, "As for the immortal level, one needs to fuse all the power of laws together and return to the origin of the laws. For example, the law of matter contains the laws of metal, wood, water, fire, earth, wind, lightning, and so on. Only by fusing them step by step can one grasp the true origin of the law of matter." He had already learned about the cultivation of these realms from Yu Yuqian, Yu Taiyan, Chu Daoju, and Elder Kong. If one wanted to break through the threshold of severing truth to the immortal level, they needed to fuse a part of the power of laws together. Only then could they enter the first sky of immortal. However, now that I've grasped all the four great primitive laws, if I try to break through at the same time, I can't help but feel that the power of the different laws will affect each other. I can't smoothly touch that threshold. However, if I try to break through the four great primitive laws separately, it will be impossible. Du Xiaofu frowned and kept thinking about the problem of breaking through the threshold of the immortal level. The reason why there were so few people in the 33 heavens who tried to break through to the immortal level with two or more primitive laws was because it was simply too difficult. When breaking through, the power of laws would twist and entangle with each other, which made the process of breaking through extremely difficult. If the gate to the immortal realm was only so wide, one primitive power of law could pass through it. Then, when two kinds of power of law were put together, it would be impossible to squeeze them in. It would be hard for the warrior to find a way to get through it, which would put him in a dilemma. If I break through the four great primitive laws separately, then everything I've done in the severing truth realm will be meaningless. I'll lose my original intention. Du Xiaofu couldn't help but sigh. His eyes were filled with helplessness. Chu Daoju, Ling Feng, Long San, and Yutayan had once told him that the immortal level fused with the laws and pursued the power of the origin of the laws. During this process, once one reached the first sky of immortal with one primitive law, the body and primordial spirit of the living being would have a deep affinity with that law. As for the other primitive laws, they would be repelled, and it would be very difficult to fuse with them. Therefore, Du Xiaofu couldn't give up on the other 3 primitive laws and focus on breaking through one primitive law. In the 33 heavens, it wasn't that no one had broken through to the immortal level with 2 primitive laws. However, they had all done it at the same time, just like the dean of the Sky Martial School beside him. What he needed to do at this time was to mix the various primordial laws together and make the various powers more condensed. How can I fuse the 4 great primitive laws together and twist them into a rope to break through to the immortal level? Du Xiaofu was still pondering. This question made him feel very conflicted. After all, there were too few people who could do this. Although it wasn't impossible to say that there would be no one who could cultivate the 4 great primitive laws at the same time, it was definitely in existence as rare as phoenix feathers and qilin horns. In the current world, other than Du Xiaofu, there was probably no one who could do it. This emperor is so worried. Du Xiaofu's face suddenly turned bitter. He felt helpless. There were very few predecessors who could set him as a benchmark. This made his path to breaking through dark. He could only rely on himself to explore. Chapter 2837. Du Xiaofu felt a little dejected. It was too difficult to reach the immortal realm. Countless people who cultivated only one type of primordial law found it difficult to reach the immortal realm, let alone someone who cultivated all 4 types of primordial laws. At this moment, he only felt that his future was boundless and he had no direction at all. At this moment, he actually had the urge to shake the dean awake and ask him how he managed to break through to the immortal realm using the 2 primordial laws of time and space. That way, he would be able to use it as a reference. However, it was obvious that this idea was not realistic at all. He did not understand what the meditative realm was like. If he disturbed the dean's breakthrough, it would not be a good thing. Not to mention whether it would affect the dean's cultivation. If he woke up, he would probably be able to slap Du Xiaofu into a pancake. If the dean wanted to kill him in the meditative realm, wouldn't it be as easy as killing an ant? Therefore, Du Xiaofu could only shake his head and give up. Looks like I can only rely on myself to figure it out slowly. He stopped thinking about it, stood up from the ground, and walked out of the ancient desolate space. He could not rush to break through to the immortal realm. Swoosh! Du Xiaofu's figure appeared in the outside world. He came to the ancient forest that was razed to the ground by the ferocious creature. Emperor God, Your Majesty! Seeing him appear, the 20,000-strong people of Yuqing rushed forward and surrounded Du Xiaofu. This breakthrough actually took me nearly 2 years. Du Xiaofu counted the days and discovered that from the time they obtained the Black Blood Evil Zoisha until now, almost 2 years had passed in the outside world, and in the desolate ancient space, it was almost 200 years from start to finish. However, he had also gained a lot, especially in the time and soul laws. He had finally improved greatly. All 4 types of primordial laws had reached the full circle of truth-severing stage. If such a terrifying development were to be announced throughout the 33 heavens, it was unknown just how many people would be frightened to death. The Divine Emperor's aura has become even more profound. Now, he wouldn't even be afraid of the top 100 Changrong sky cultivators, let alone the top 100 of the Yuqing divine nation. Meng Dongyang sighed bitterly and said with some helplessness, the 4 primal laws had all reached the great circle of truth-severing. This kind of terrifying realm was enough to crush the combined attacks of many of his peers. Their deity emperors had already left their peers in the dust by a terrifying distance. The others listened to Meng Dongyang's words and just nodded silently in agreement. I wonder how the major forces in the Fiend God battlefield are doing. We've been delayed for so long. We've missed a lot of opportunities. Du Xiaofu didn't care about the gazes of the crowd as he sighed with emotion. Since His Majesty has come out of seclusion, let's continue our exploration. a late-stage truth-severing expert said as he looked at Du Xiaofu. Du Xiaofu gladly agreed. Then he led everyone and continued forward. At this time, they were in an area that looked like a plain. This was caused by the ferocious creature from before. The ferocious aura was much thinner than elsewhere. As they continued on their journey, Du Xiaofu put all the cultivators below the late stage of truth severing back into the desolate ancient space again. Then, he began to travel through the void with Yu Qingyan and a dozen others. As they traveled through the ancient withered forest, they realized that there were many traces of people exploring this place. I think the disciples of the other major forces must have discovered this place and come in to search for it. Yu Qingyao said as she looked at the surroundings. 2 years was enough time for many things to happen. It wasn't surprising that more experts had discovered this place. Since that's the case, there's no need for us to look for any more benefits here. Let's continue to the desolate ancient ruins. Zhang Haoren nodded and then looked at Du Xiaofu. Even if there were other benefits in this forest, they must have been plundered by the disciples of the other major forces. There was no need for the Yuqing divine nation to waste any more time here. Let's go! Du Xiaofu waved his hand and led the group in the direction they had set. Along the way, their speed was extremely fast and there wasn't much delay. According to the memories of the demon clan member, the desolate ancient ruins were very far away from them. With the strength of an ordinary truth-severing cultivator, they would need to fly for at least a few years to reach it. Therefore, the group moved with almost all their strength. However, during this period, Du Xiaofu and the others would often appear from the void passageway and obtain some treasures and such. They had a good harvest. The deeper they went into the fiend god battlefield, the thicker the bloody and ferocious aura. The things that were born were also more extraordinary. However, they didn't find any treasures on the level of the black blood Ganoderma and the blood jade spirit ginseng. However, they had a great harvest of things like the black soul wood and the underworld soul grass. They actually obtained 30 stalks. Things on the level of the crimson nether flower were even more numerous. Such a harvest was absolutely beyond the imagination of many young experts. It was enough for many people to share. On this day, Du Xiaofu and the others were flying and hurrying when they encountered a very large group of people. There were hundreds of thousands of people. Disciples of the Holy Land. The moment he saw this group, Du Xiaofu concluded that they were definitely from a holy land. Large numbers of disciples from those extremely powerful holy lands had entered this place. He had already seen them before the fiend god battlefield opened. Just as he was speaking, the other party had also discovered them and was flying towards them. Many young faces appeared. There were 7 people in the lead, all of whom had the strength of truth-severing consummation. They were very terrifying. In fact, there was a young man in white robes who was even more unfathomable. Even Meng Dongyang, Zhang Haoren and Ting Yuanshan, the 3 truth-severing consummation cultivators, couldn't see his true realm. They seemed to be from the Qingcang Holy Land. Yu Qingyan's eyes flashed as he looked at the white-robed young man in the lead and said, when they gathered outside the fiend god battlefield, he had paid attention to the situation of some holy lands and felt a sense of familiarity with this young man. The Qingcang Holy Land could be ranked in the top 10 of the 35 holy lands in the entire transcendent Changrong heaven. It was definitely a colossus. Which holy kingdom's disciples are you all from? When he saw Du Xiaofu and the others, the white-robed young man stepped forward and asked softly. His gaze swept across Du Xiaofu and the others one by one, and there was deep shock in his eyes. The purple-robed young man and the others only had about 20,000 people, but there were 4 truth-severing consummation cultivators among them. This was especially so for the purple-robed young man. Even the white-robed young man felt as if he had fallen into an abyss when he looked at him. This feeling made him afraid. It was also because of this that he would greet the other party now. That's right. We are disciples of the Yuqing Holy Kingdom. May I ask if you are the saint of the Qingcang Holy Land? Yu Qingyan looked at Du Xiaofu. After receiving his instructions, he cupped his fists and said to the white-robed young man opposite him, Yuqing Holy Kingdom. It's actually someone from the Yuqing Holy Kingdom. When the hundreds of thousands of people opposite them heard this, they were all stunned. The name of the Yuqing Holy Kingdom could be said to be like thunder to their ears. 2 years ago, they had caused quite a commotion. In the beginning, the people of the Tsangming Holy Kingdom were ruthlessly trampled on by the newly appointed Yuqing Divine Emperor. Later on, it was rumored that more than 20 experts of the Jade Feather Holy Ground had also suffered greatly at the hands of these people. Therefore, in an instant, the name of the Yuqing Holy Kingdom spread throughout the entire Divine Devil battlefield. Their young Divine Emperor, who was only at the truth-severing stage, also became famous. All the saints, saintesses, and princesses were deeply interested in him. So it's you from the Yuqing Holy Kingdom. I am Xiao Yun, from the Qingcang Holy Land. The white-robed young man looked at Yu Qingyan and the others opposite him and replied very politely. His eyes finally landed on Du Xiaofu. It wasn't difficult for him to see that this young man in purple robes was undoubtedly the legendary Yuqing Divine Emperor. Before the destruction of the Extreme Spirit Holy Land, the Yuqing Holy Kingdom could only be ranked in the middle of the 72 Holy Kingdoms. But now, it seems that the strength of their generation is very terrifying. Xiao Yun thought in his heart. He didn't dare to believe it. The overall strength of the Yuqing Holy Kingdom made him look at them in a new light. This wasn't a lineup that a mid-tier Holy Kingdom should have. This one is Du Xiaofu. Greetings, Saint's son. Du Xiaofu finally spoke. Clearly, the other party didn't have much hostility, so he didn't put on airs. Greetings, Divine Emperor. Xiao Yun smiled and said to him, I didn't expect to see the Yuqing Divine Emperor here. It is indeed a surprise. It just so happens that a secret place called the Primordial Ruins has appeared. Right now, all the Holy Lands and Holy Kingdoms are rushing there. If the Divine Emperor is interested, why don't we travel together? He looked at Du Xiaofu and spoke calmly. His attitude was also somewhat sincere. Du Xiaofu raised his eyebrows and was slightly surprised. He had learned about the existence of the Primordial Ruins from the memories of the demon race. He didn't expect that in just 2 years, it had already spread throughout the divine demon battlefield. Many people knew about it. This made him a little speechless. It seemed that many things had happened while he was in seclusion. He guessed that the other forces had also encountered the demon race. All right. After thinking for a moment, Du Xiaofu nodded his head and simply agreed. It just so happened that he was going there. It was also on the way to the Qingcang Holy Ground. He could also find out some things and understand the current situation better. Then let's talk as we walk. Xiao Yun smiled warmly and gestured for him to go ahead. Du Xiaofu also stretched out his hand, and the two of them walked side by side. They led the majestic crowd of over 100,000 people and flew deeper into the divine demon battlefield. Du Xiaofu and Xiao Yun chatted as they traveled. Before long, they became much more familiar with each other and began to call each other brothers. Brother Xiao Yun, there's something I don't understand. Du Xiaofu glanced at Xiao Yun and asked, 2 years ago, I heard that many disciples from the 35 Holy Lands and the other 71 Holy Kingdoms wanted to cause trouble for me. But why do you want to travel with me? Aren't you afraid of being implicated? He was a little puzzled. He didn't know Xiao Yun, but he suddenly wanted to travel with the Yuqing Divine Kingdom. This puzzled him. Xiao Yun suddenly laughed heartily when he heard Du Xiaofu's words. He said in an extremely candid manner, reputation is something that is spread. Moreover, anyone with a discerning eye can tell that someone is intentionally spreading rumors about you, Brother Du, to make you the target of everyone. He glanced at Du Xiaofu and continued, however, this plot that can't be considered a plot is very successful. Even if many people see the truth, they still list you as their #1 enemy and want to fight you. They want to trample on your name and establish their own prestige. Brother Xiao Yun, you see it clearly. Du Xiaofu nodded and expressed his agreement with Xiao Yun's words. Actually, I'm no exception. My thoughts are exactly the same as theirs. I want to defeat you in battle. Xiao Yun smiled faintly. There was a hint of ridicule in his eyes, but it suddenly turned into deep helplessness as he said, however, when I first saw you, I realize that your cultivation is too terrifying. You're definitely much stronger than me. So, at that moment, I completely dispelled my previous thoughts. Du Xiaofu raised his eyes to look at Xiao Yun. He was very surprised. There was no need to think about it. This guy was also very terrifying. Otherwise, how could he have seen through his cultivation with a single glance? Although Xiao Yun's words were very modest and he knew he wasn't Du Xiaofu's match, Du Xiaofu also knew that if Du Xiaofu excluded himself, Xiao Yun would be one of the strongest even amongst his peers in the 33 heavens. At the same time, Du Xiaofu had a good impression of this person. He was very frank and didn't hide anything. He said what he thought. At the very least, he seemed like a magnanimous gentleman at the moment. When a terrifying expert knows he's no match for you, he definitely can't be your enemy. How can it be better to be your friend? Xiao Yun didn't care about Du Xiaofu's gaze and continued to say, however, the disciples from the 35 holy lands are all arrogant people. I'm no exception. So, I hope to have a battle with you if I have the chance. I don't want to defeat you, but at the very least, I want to measure the extent of my strength. Brother Xiao Yun is too modest. We'll definitely have a chance to fight. I hope we can fight to our heart's content. Du Xiaofu revealed a helpless smile, but he agreed very straightforwardly. Hi, good. Xiao Yun laughed again and said, I'm not afraid of losing to you. The greatest benefit of being a friend is that at the very least, I won't be beaten up miserably like an enemy and be mocked by others. Hearing this, Du Xiaofu rubbed his nose, speechless. According to Xiao Yun, there were such benefits to being friends. He hadn't realized it before. This guy is definitely a terrifying master. Du Xiaofu looked at Xiao Yun again and thought to himself. Xiao Yun wanted to use him to see the extent of his strength. In fact, he was implying that it would be difficult for him to find an opponent in the same generation as him in the Changrong Divine Land. He wanted to fight with all his strength. However, Du Xiaofu thought to himself and chuckled. When the time comes, I'll definitely teach you a lesson. If you're not convinced, you can bring more helpers and come at me together. Hundreds of thousands of people traveled at an extremely fast speed. Their destination was the primordial ruins. Along the way, they encountered another group of people. There were about 30,000 of them, and they were also very strong. However, compared to the combined forces of the Qing Divine Kingdom and the Yuqing Divine Kingdom, they were clearly lacking. Fatty Fan Yushu recognized the identity of these people. They were from a faction called the Changqing Divine Kingdom, ranked 7th or 8th among the 72 Divine Kingdoms. When the disciples of the Changqing Divine Kingdom saw Du Xiaofu's large group, they directly took a detour and didn't even dare to greet them. The difference between a sacred ground and a divine kingdom was too great. Few people dared to provoke them. Traveling with the people of the Qingcang Divine Kingdom actually has such benefits. Du Xiaofu rubbed his nose and thought to himself. With such a terrifying lineup like the Qingcang Divine Kingdom, it could save him a lot of trouble. Otherwise, if he encountered other factions along the way and they knew his identity, it would inevitably attract some trouble. Fortunately, these troubles were avoided because of the deterrence of the Qingcang Divine Kingdom. After rushing for so long, we should be arriving soon. Among the crowd, a true severing perfection stage expert from the Qingcang Divine Kingdom sighed as he looked around. Based on his feeling, they shouldn't be too far away from the primordial ruins. The divine demon battle realm is too vast. We've been gone for another 2 years. Some experts revealed bitter smiles. They were very helpless. True severing perfection stage experts rarely used spatial channels to travel such a long distance. It was indeed a waste of time for them to travel such a long distance. However, in these 2 years, they had gained a lot. There were many precious medicines here. Hundreds of thousands of people spread out like a large net. Who knew how many benefits they had obtained? At this point in time, almost everyone had obtained extraordinary opportunities and reaped bountiful rewards. Perhaps to the few experts like Du Xiaofu and Xiao Yun, these benefits weren't particularly great. However, in the eyes of others, it was something unimaginable in the past. Do you feel it? The fiendish aura here is much stronger. I'm afraid the primordial ruins aren't far away. Xiao Yun suddenly stopped flying and carefully sensed the aura in the void. I feel that my divine soul is throbbing more and more. It seems like I can't suppress it any longer. An early-stage true severing perfection stage expert frowned and said, "At this time, a large number of seizing divinity stage experts had a deeper understanding of this. They circulated their cultivation with all their strength, but they slowly felt that their expressions were a little erratic. It should be soon. The air and soil here are completely different from other places. The difference is huge." Du Xiaofu looked at the ground from high up in the sky and said softly. Many people followed his gaze. The soil on the ground was also dark red, but it was no longer dry and hard. Instead, it was like a bloody mud. Patches of paste flowed, looking very terrifying. Chapter 28:38. Everyone felt that this was a phenomenon that would only appear when they got close to the desolate ancient ruins. When the heavens and earth were first created, a bloody battle had definitely occurred there, soaking the soil here into mud. Continue forward. Xiao Yun waved his hand and moved at the same time as Du Xiaofu, continuing to advance deeper into the ruins. Du Xiaofu had learned from the memories of the demon elites earlier that the desolate ancient ruins were indeed not very far from here. However, this was only relatively speaking. According to everyone's previous speed, they would need about half a year to truly arrive. As everyone continued to advance, the bloody mud on the ground could no longer be seen. Instead, it was replaced by rolling black waves, like an ocean, surging with monstrous waves. This was a scene formed by the passage of countless years of blood. It had not dried up and was still flowing, forming a sea of blood. The scene was terrifying, and it was at this time that someone finally could not bear it anymore. Their bodies began to fester, corroded by the bloody murderous aura. This is too terrifying. This kind of place is not something normal people can come to at all. Some early-stage true severing cultivators also said. The surrounding air was filled with scarlet, carrying with it an incomparably terrifying power that constantly attacked their physical bodies and primordial spirits. I feel like I can no longer fly, an elite said in shock. His entire body swayed in the void, as if he was about to fall. At this time, everyone's strength was constantly flowing away, suffering a great erosion. Vaguely, there was also a strange power dragging them downwards, as if it wanted to pull everyone into the sea of blood. There's someone up ahead. Yu Qingyan pointed. Following the direction of his finger, there was a group of figures in the distance. They were also the disciples of a faction. Du Xiaofu and the others had long since discovered this scene. Under their observation, they saw a terrifying scene. Several miserable screams came from the distance. Several figures fell from the sky one after another, directly falling into the sea of blood. Those people struggled with all their might, but the more they struggled, the more their bodies sank. In less than 2 breaths of time, everyone saw that those people's bodies quickly melted, directly turning into pools of black blood that merged into the sea of blood. On Du Xiaofu's side, many people felt their scalps go numb and goosebumps appear all over their bodies. It was a terrifying sight to behold. All of these people were seizing gods, and were clearly very strong. However, they were unable to escape from the sea of blood and died instantly. Be careful! At this moment, Zhang Haoran shouted loudly and quickly waved a ray of light, pulling Yu Chengliang, He Zhibai, and the others over to him. Just now, beneath their feet, a sea of blood came crashing down, almost engulfing them. That was close. He Zhibai, Yu Chengliang, and the others were filled with lingering fear. If Zhang Haoran hadn't acted in time, they would have followed in the footsteps of those young disciples. Those below the late stage of truth-severing stage retreat. There is no benefit in advancing any further. Just wait for us outside. Xiao Yun turned around to look at the hundreds of thousands of people. Among these people, there weren't many who had truly reached the late stage of truth-severing. The Yuqing Divine Kingdom had more than 10 people, while the Qingtsong Holy Ground had more than 500 people. Many of the weaker people couldn't advance any further. If they continued, it would be no different from courting death. I feel that the deeper we go into the sea of blood, the more dangerous it will be. I'm afraid that even those at the peak of truth-severing stage may not be able to persevere until the end. Du Xiaofu thought for a moment, then said to Xiao Yun, "Why don't we continue forward and do our best to scout it out? Those below the peak of truth-severing stage retreat." He frowned slightly. He felt that this sea of blood was definitely not ordinary. Even if he was at the peak of truth-severing stage, he probably wouldn't be able to go very deep. Rather than having these people follow him pointlessly, it was better to have them wait outside. In fact, he had also considered another possibility, which was that many other forces knew about this place and were gathering here. If the people from the Qingtsong Holy Ground and Yuqing Divine Kingdom encountered them and started fighting, it would be safer to have more experts with them. All right, then it's decided. Xiao Yun nodded in agreement. I'll have to trouble everyone to take care of the people from the Yuqing Divine Kingdom. Du Xiaofu turned around, cupped his fists, and said solemnly to the hundreds of thousands of people from the Qingtsong Holy Ground. The divine demon battle realm was filled with danger. It came from the remnants of the demon race, from the battles between the various forces, and so on. He didn't want anything to happen to Yu Qingyan, Yu Qingyao, He Zhibai, and the others when he wasn't present. Rest assured, Divine Emperor. In the divine demon battle realm, there aren't many forces that dare to provoke our Qingtsong Holy Ground. Even the Huanchu Holy Ground, Tru Yen Holy Ground, and other forces have to give us some face. A late-stage truth-severing stage cultivator laughed heartily and said to Du Xiaofu, "Brother Du, don't worry." Xiao Yun also gave some instructions to the people from the Qingtsong Holy Ground, then had everyone retreat. In this way, only Du Xiaofu, Xiao Yun, Ting Yuanshan, Meng Dongyang, Zhang Haoren, and 6 people from the Qingtsong Holy Ground were left. There was a total of 11 people, and all of them were at the Great Circle of Truth-Severing stage. Even if Du Xiaofu wasn't included, the other 10 people's combined strength was already terrifying enough. They could barely contend with a first sky of Immortal Realm expert. "Let's go," Du Xiaofu said softly. Then he and the others continued to go deeper. In front of them, most of the people from the forces that had been swallowed by the Blood Sea had already begun to retreat in panic. Only 2 people were still there, preparing to continue forward. This is a force from one of the divine kingdoms. They have a great circle of truth-severing stage cultivator. They are very strong. Du Xiaofu observed those people and made some judgments in his heart. A divine kingdom force with a great circle of truth-severing stage cultivator could definitely be ranked at the forefront of the 72 divine kingdoms. At least, before entering the divine demon battle realm, the Yuqing Divine Kingdom didn't even have a great circle of truth-severing stage cultivator. Because of the terrifying opportunity of obtaining the black blood evil grass, Meng Dongyang and the other 2 had easily broken through to the great circle of truth-severing stage. On the side, the great circle of truth-severing stage cultivator from the Divine Kingdom force looked at Du Xiaofu and the others with a terrified gaze. He treated these 11 people as a force, so he didn't dare to look at them too much. He was afraid that he would bring disaster upon himself. Du Xiaofu and the others didn't delay. They quickly moved, using their extreme speed to go further into the Blood Sea. Just as they had expected, the more they went forward, the thicker the terrifying murderous aura was. It lingered in the hearts of the 11 experts, and they couldn't get rid of it. Fortunately, their cultivations were very strong, so they were able to resist it. A boundless sea of blood. How many creatures must have died in order to form such a terrifying area? Everyone's eyes were filled with shock. They were shocked by the vastness of the sea of blood. In their hearts, their imaginations of the ancient war were refreshed once again. It was definitely much more tragic than they had imagined. The blood sea below was incomparably thick. After countless years of sedimentation, it actually didn't dry up. This monotonous and boring scene, coupled with the terrifying power that constantly invaded their bodies and souls, made them more and more impatient as they moved forward. "Look, There's something ahead. Zhang Haoren shouted from afar as he excitedly pointed into the distance. Almost at the end of their line of sight, there was a hill-like object protruding from the blood sea, appearing in front of everyone's eyes. Let's go take a look. Du Xiaofu took the lead and rushed over. Not long after, the scenery there became clear. It's actually an island, and it's very large. Xiao Yun said softly. He saw a huge island with a radius of at least tens of thousands of miles. On this island, the earth and rocks were messy, and there were also many tall mountains that rose from the ground. Among them, one of the most slender peaks was snapped off at the waist, falling head first into the sea of blood, soaking in boundless black blood. It looked just like a long sword lying there, its might intimidating. There should be something extraordinary on this island. Let's go take a look. Zhang Haoren's eyes burned brightly while his entire body surged with powerful fluctuations, and he was constantly resisting the terrifying baleful aura that penetrated every inch of the island. Someone has beaten us to it. Du Xiaofu looked ahead. Many figures had appeared there, and all of them were flying in the sky as they approached the enormous island from other directions. As expected, the various powers have received the news, and many of them have rushed over here. Xiao Yun spoke in a light voice. With a single glance, he was able to see that there were almost 20 figures in all directions. Obviously, the other forces had also sent their disciples away to avoid unnecessary losses. Let's go. Let's go take a look. Du Xiaofu directly flew out, and it didn't take long for him to reach the sky above the island. At this time, the experts from all directions had also arrived. They were separated by tens of thousands of miles as they looked at each other from afar. I actually met a few familiar faces. Looking in a certain direction, Du Xiaofu's mouth involuntarily curled into a sinister smile. In front of him to the right, 3 people at the perfection stage of true severing stood there, and all of them had extraordinary bearings. Oh, the Jade Feather's sacred ground? Xiao Yun raised his eyebrows, but he didn't care about the existence of the 3 people. Of course, he had also heard that the Jade Feather's sacred ground had suffered a great loss at the hands of the Yuqing Divine Kingdom in an ancient forest a few years ago, and Du Xiaofu had a grudge with them. The Yuqing Divine Emperor. Just as they were sizing up the other party, the Jade Feather's sacred grounds trio was also staring at Du Xiaofu. They felt their teeth itch when they saw this purple-robed youth. The Jade Feather Sacred Ground had actually suffered such a great loss when fighting for the Black Blood Spirit Zoisha back then. However, the Yuqing Divine Kingdom was obviously not easy to deal with. The most important thing was that the young Divine Emperor was simply too terrifying. They actually broke through again. And it's 4 people? After a little careful observation, the Jade Feather's Sacred Ground's eyes sank. It wasn't difficult for him to discover that Du Xiaofu, Ting Yuanshan, Zhang Haoren, and Meng Dongyang were all at the perfection stage of true severing realm. Didn't that mean that the purple-robed youth had become even more terrifying? It must be that black blood spirit Zoisha that allowed them to obtain unimaginable benefits. The Jade Feather's sacred ground's knuckles cracked, and his heart was filled with hatred. When they fought earlier, the other party didn't even have a single perfection stage of true severing realm, but in just a few years, for had appeared all of a sudden. The blow to him was simply too great. Jade Feather Sacred Ground, do you want to fight again? Zhang Haoren suddenly snorted coldly and loudly said to the Jade Feather Sacred Grounds trio. His entire body exuded battle intent, and he didn't look like he was retreating at all as he charged into the distance. You! The Jade Feather Sacred Grounds' teeth were about to shatter. Things were different now. Back then, the Yuqing Divine Emperor alone could fight more than 20 of them. Now that he had broken through again, the 3 of them were simply not enough to deal with him. Moreover, the purple-robed youth had 11 perfection stage true severing realm cultivators beside him. If they fought against him, they probably wouldn't even be able to withstand a few slaps. Qing Tsang's sacred ground. How did they get together with the Yuqing Divine Kingdom? The Jade Feather's sacred ground's heart was filled with dread as he looked at Xiao Yun and the others. As one of the 35 sacred grounds, They naturally knew how powerful the Qingtsang sacred ground was. In terms of overall strength, it was probably ranked 7th or 8th among all the sacred grounds. Among the young experts of this generation, the Qingtsang sacred ground was even more terrifying. They had many experts, and their sacred ground strength could definitely rank in the top 3 of the 35 sacred grounds. It was a terrifying existence. Many people felt that the Qingtsang sacred grounds training in the divine demon battle realm had at least a 20% chance of breaking through to the immortal realm. The Jade Feather Sacred Ground really couldn't understand why the people of the Yuqing Divine Kingdom and the Qingtsang Sacred Ground had connections. Moreover, the two of them seemed to be very friendly. This made him extremely fearful. "Let's go." The Jade Feather Sacred Ground didn't respond to Zhang Haoren's words. Instead, he gloomily said to the two people beside him, it was definitely not a wise move to start a conflict with the Yuqing Divine Kingdom at this time. Since they had come to this isolated island, it was better to explore it first. After all, this island was very big and was enough for everyone to search for a while. Let them go. Seeing that Zhang Haoren wanted to stop the Jade Feather Sacred Grounds group from leaving, Du Xiaofu stopped him and said softly. With that, he descended towards the island. Don't land on the rocks. Just fly in the air. The soil on this island is very strange. I'm afraid it will be dangerous. Xiao Yun reminded everyone as he hovered 3 feet above the ground. As soon as his voice fell, the 11 of them heard a mournful scream in the distance. With the power of their primordial spirits, they discovered that an expert from an unknown faction had landed on the rocks and turned into a pool of blood. He had died instantly. This island is surrounded by a vast sea of blood. After countless years of contamination, the powerful life forms that died here have gathered together. They are no longer ordinary rocks. They have the most terrifying corrosive power. Du Xiaofu lifted his eyelids and said softly, "You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure."